our people go free. I guess so too, like to see. I'm just trying to help our people go free. I'm just trying to see. You're too right. I'm just trying to see people go free. I'm just trying to see. I'm just trying to help our people go free.
And we are rolling in, going free. Great to see everybody here. What a way to start with the great 4-0 rocking out. What an epic musician that guy is. This, of course, is Twitter Tantrums with Kate, and we'll be bringing her on in just a moment. I want to say hello to all of you. Looks like we have all of our platforms are up and running. Entropy, Odyssey, DLive, Cash App. If you have any questions for me, as always, make sure you tag me as No White Guilt. It's been an epic day for me. Every day is a wonderful day in service to white well-being. We have all of the me-nots. Boy, the me-nots are coming out, aren't they? They're coming out of the woodwork. They're like, I don't know. They're like termites, and they're coming out and they just want to devour away at everything. But it's curious. There does seem to be it could be several sources. There could be several sources of this, but it's a very curious thing that there does seem to be sort of on a larger scale, this behind the scenes movement to maybe cripple any sort of what you might call, what could we call this? Sort of the rebel Republican faction, their support to cripple it, divide it, make much of it a movement about wanting to name them, and so that Trump doesn't have the momentum he needs to get the nomination. Seems like it. And this would be the time frame when it would all kick off, wouldn't it? As soon as they know for sure. But I see there are many, and I'll be discussing, I'll give a little hint to folks. I will be discussing maybe some other things with a researcher very soon over on his channel. And I'll be sharing that information very soon. A lot going on. It's going to be an exciting time. Today's going to be a lot of fun, though. So we want to have fun. How are you all doing today? There's the great Montana Kid and our hero, swashbuckling extraordinaire, Franklin. Jody is here. Coincidences are happening. Franklin said, Adam Green, right? Did he say something? Cindy Ben is here. The great Mrs. Jess Horse. Wonderful to see you. Tim is here. Am I on the right microphone? Does it sound fantastic as always? Let me just check. Yep. Everything looks good on my end. Janice is here. Great to see you. Please share the URL with your circles of influence if you haven't. Franklin says, sounds good to me. JW Olner is here. Wonderful to see you. Ozark, oh yeah. Got a swash flag. Rolled up the flagpole already. Wonderful. Wonderful, brother. Yeah, we're going to have laughs. We're going to have a good time. What was your day like? What was the weather like where you were? Did you go to the gym today? I didn't, but Kate did. Maybe she'll tell us about it. But there was not enough time for me to go to the gym. It wasn't my gym day anyhow. Not a gym day, not a range day. Just making sure everything is all right over here. We did have a question on entropy that we didn't get to yesterday. and I'll get to that now. We're gonna bring Kate out shortly. Begin Twitter tantrums with Kate. Oh my gosh! And have you all seen? I got to pull it up. If I had the time, I would have already had it pulled up. But this is beyond knocking it out of the park. I mean, No White Guilt Clips is extraordinary. He is extraordinary. We're going to play that in just a moment to get the fun started. You're going to love it. If you haven't seen it, I actually pinned it to the top of my Twitter. That's how awesome it is. All right, let's see here. Well, we'll do that in one sec. So we'll bring Kate out. We're going to have a heck of a lot of fun talking about some of these Twitter conversations. I think maybe even some of you have been involved in some of these conversations she might be wanting to mention. And so we'll be having a look at those, having some fun. And then afterward, I will read some of our comments from you all, from the community, and catch up on some more of those. We've been running out of time lately with all of the attacks on yours truly. We've been running out of time dealing with those. Haven't been able to get to as many of your comments, and I don't like that, because you all are thinkers, you're champions in your own right. That's the way it's supposed to be. Swashbucklers extraordinaire. So I want to hear from you. I want to hear your insight. That's how we grow. That's how we get better. That's the big difference. One of the many big differences between what we do and what you see in many other places in the white sympathetic sphere. And as you can see, that is so successful. And I am just so suave. My suavity knows no bounds. That the jealousy is just really, I mean, think about this, folks. Think about this. I should feel like my ego should get inflated to the moon. It's already there. But you have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people, even what we used to consider, intellectual webzine, defaming me, not with what I'm actually saying, not immediately believing anything negative, no matter how ridiculous, no matter how false, even if they have to fabricate it. That is the obvious sign of deep jealousy and envy. And what could it be for? Am I driving around in a Lamborghini? No. Am I jet setting? No. Do I live in a big mansion? No. The only thing that it could be is that we have the method that works. That's where the jealousy comes from. We have the method that works, that changes and saves lives. That's where the deep jealousy comes from. And that's why these people are turning out. We must never forget who and why these people were when they came out. And here in the midst of all of the negativity, we still have fun. I laugh the live long day. We have Edamon 3 was over here, and I missed, said, does the white well-being community have a Discord? I do not believe, Edamon, and if he shows up, let him know that I answered his question at the very beginning here. Kate coming out in just a moment. And I do not believe there is anyone who is running a Discord that is focused on white well-being. We do have there is a Telegram group focused on white well-being, and the link to that is in the description. He also asks here, and of course we have GFCs and the links to those, the emails to those who run GFCs, and where you can have a great mini conversation, the same kind of conversations that can be had on, or could be had on a place like Discord, which I understand, and somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, though, is the kind of place where people get doxxed somehow and people get found out all the time. So not technically, I think, not a safe place. But you can have productive conversations in these groups. And specifically, you can write to Mr. V. His email is right there at the top of the GFCs. Going Free clubs. Edamon3 also says, I deleted my last comment because I realized the joke might be misinterpreted. No malicious intent. It was a joke about your conversation where naming is often connected to Palestinian propaganda. I didn't even see it. So you got to it before I did, brother. But with that said, let me see how you all are. Promethean Promulgation is with us. Again, please share, because the anti-whites are shunting us, cutting the tongues out of our mouths, slitting our throat, everything they can to prevent us from reaching our brothers and sisters out there, because they know that when our brothers and sisters hear what we have to say here, they won't become a tool for the anti-white oligarchs. They won't become an antagonist in the anti-white narrative, which plays right into the anti-white oligarchs' hands. When they come here, there's an opportunity for them to embrace love, hope, and redemption, and to take this into their lives, and as a consequence, a curative contagion that spreads from brother to sister and sister to brother among our people. So, of course, they're going to censor us as much as they possibly can. So we need you to be the algorithm. And if any of you, you can share, your stories. If any of you are sharing and then being attacked by the name and slay them community, and I guess they're actually this, shall we say, this lens, maybe this anti-strategy runs through all of the other groups. It's truly amazing, and to various degrees, but it's truly amazing. If you're having experiences of being attacked, let us know. Let me know. Great Lakes Nationalist says, at worst, Countercurrent's essay implies Jason is naive. No, I would say at best. I think that's probably what you mean. At best, it's implying that I'm just this sort of airheaded, using tired old arguments with a ridiculous objective that could never work, turning radical anti-white people, bringing them into the white sympathetic sphere, which somebody said, and I want to read that comment on a subsequent day. I just saw it very astutely in the thread, saying that's implying that I'm trying to bring in people that would destroy our community. And the metaphor was the neighborhood. The neighborhood is like our community. And look at what happens when those people are brought in. Jason's trying to bring them in. And so that was the implication. And once we're done with Twitter Tantrums with Kate, I will speak to the update, because I had a correspondence with Greg Johnson. Donning Armour is here. Great to see you. Donning Armour says, I hope there's no more infighting. Me too, brother. I hope that those people will stay away, and I will make my arguments for the people in this community, as I've been doing. And I won't be going over to their communities, and I won't be slandering them. They're not even making an argument. They're not even coming over here making an argument. It's just all doxing, death threats, and this most disgusting slander you would ever imagine. And then we have this from this, heretofore intellectual webzine that wrote this article that the only thing they got right was my name. Elaine Sabatino, great to see you. Ozark, what's this? Lifted weights at home in the sun. 2 things taken care of at once. That's fantastic. It takes the sun, and too much heat takes too much out of me to get the best workout. So if it's not too bad outside, then I'm good. But if it's like blazing hot, then it fatigues me before I get the best workout that I would like to have. We have our troll slayer Franklin already burning down some trolls. You're not going to be able to come in here and talk about violence. Are you serious? That's for the other communities. That's for the other. You want to go? You want to talk about violence? Go to the other communities if that's what you're trying to do. All right, let's go ahead and let me see. All right. And let's see what Kate has going on. Great, Kate. How are you, young lady?
Hello, can you hear me?
Sure can. How are you?
I'm excellent. How are you?
Splendid as always. Now, you went to the gym. Did you have a good workout?
I had a fantastic workout. I did the Boso ball today, and so and the board where you flip it over and then the board's on the other side and you do like the planks and everything, because I'm always getting ready for the possible violent encounter with the squirrels.
Are you ever, when you're on the Boso ball, are you ever like right beside you, there's like a seal or something from SeaWorld or circus?
No, sir, I've never noticed that. I don't think they let seals work out at my gym. I don't
Wow,
know. I'd be surprised.
how discriminatory.
It really is. Yeah, I guess it is. I guess they're anti-seal.
Anti-seal.
I also did the monkey bars, which I love to do, and I don't get to do often because I don't do them if there's a bunch of people in the room with the jungle gym.
Right.
But it was pretty empty tonight, so I got to do the monkey bars, and I was super excited about that.
You're actually, you can go down and back. You actually have quite a little bit of strength,
I
even
can
though
go
you don't
down
look
and
muscular.
back. Well,
Huh?
you gotta train. You gotta train for the squirrels. You
You got
never
to train for
know
the
when
squirrels.
you're going to be violently attacked. I mean, I was at the park passing out popcorn, for goodness sake, minding my own business, promoting love and unity among forest creatures. And
I'm sure.
here comes this angry, violent squirrel that was probably drinking, because I don't know if you saw the Twitter post that I made yesterday with the squirrel who was literally so drunk he could not stand up. So not only, as I have always suspected, are they violent and angry, they are also closet alcoholics.
Yeah, well, I thought it was on your Twitter. What was it doing? Tai Chi? That's what I thought it was.
That, yeah, I saw that, and I see where you're going with that, but he doesn't have the robe on.
Well, if you ever see one with a robe on, we're gonna have you talk to a doctor. Or if you ever come to me with a story about one wearing a robe, we're gonna see a doctor. Yeah, she actually talks like this out loud in public, folks. So just so you know. Just so you know. So that people walking by, they hear that. And they're like, what? What did she say? So she can actually, yeah, she can go down back and forth across the monkey bars and do pull-ups.
Absolutely. It's funny. Someone said in your chat that they let whales work out, not seals. They are right about that. We do have some whales at my gym.
Oh, that's funny. I get it. Let whales, not seals. Yep, there are some whales there. I was there once with Kate, or twice with Kate, and got to see her do her monkey bar, and then also on the Boso ball thing. That was impressive.
Well, thank you very much.
We
Yeah,
have
big fan of the Boso ball.
we have a video, and you've seen it. I saw it. It is fantastic. Has anybody seen No Wagyo Clips video that he made? And I pinned to my Twitter. Let's have a look at that now to get started tonight before we pull up these conversations and get underway. I know we have Ken, and who's the other one we have?
Oh, what was her name? Meredith? Was it Meredith? Miranda.
Miranda.
That's it.
Like Miranda writes.
Yeah.
Somebody once told me that a lot of black females are named Miranda. I wonder why that is. All right, let's go ahead and watch this. We will do this. We will make sure we have all right, this is what it is. All right, ladies and gentlemen, enjoy the great work of No White Guilt Clips. And while it plays, let's get him some swashbuckling flags and raucous emojis, some 07s. It'll be epic. Here we go. This Ken guy, this is Colonel King Sanders. That's who this is. Addiction and adultery are not shown to have increased as far as I'm aware. Eat my chicken. The reason why I don't say it's more adultery is because while I'm eating my chicken, I'm just watching her take every man at her office. And so since I'm okay with it, it's not adultery. Women were heavily medicated in the 1900s in order to keep them compliant. They didn't have my chicken. If they had my chicken, they wouldn't be compliant. There was no legitimate issue with my mother earning more money than my father. He reached the upper limit of what he was able to earn after failing at being self-employed. He was a loser like me.
You might recall that tweet said that his family actually did struggle because of the father earning less than the mother.
Very interesting how they're able to go back in time like that and resolve issues so that they can just shift their argument. We resolved that yesterday. How'd you do that, kid? Time machine. It's inside every Kentucky Fried Chicken bucket. You can find a time machine. Let's give it up for No White Guilt Clips. That was totally epic. How swash of that young man. He is a true champion. He's going to go far. And we see the trolls. The trolls are showing up even while we're having fun tonight, Kate. And I noticed that our great troll slayer, Franklin, as you know, Franklin can wield two swords at one time. And they kind of look, you know how like the propeller, the prop on a helicopter, or you can see it on a plane prop. Sometimes you see it in a fan where it looks like you see something, you see the blade moving really slowly. That's what it looks like when Franklin is at work. And so when the trolls come in, they have no idea. It's just like all of a sudden cuts everywhere at every one of the biggest arteries and veins. And then it just starts spewing and it's over before it even started. Franklin took care of them. But came in here and wanting to, Montana kid, excellent. Came in here and wanted to try to make fun of me for being, I should say, forced off of Mark's show for not wanting to condemn an entire group of people for their birth. And let me just say to you, young or old or lost and alone man, that I'm comforted just fine. All right, let's have a look now at what you have up here, young lady. Because we have Ken, Colonel Sanders, right from the commercial. If you want to start with him, or do you want to start with Miranda, and we can save his. Why don't we save his? Because that's obviously going to be fun. We can begin with Miranda.
Fun. And I have to say that personally, obviously Ken is antagonistic, and I don't agree with any of his views. However, he does have a little bit of a sense of humor because he retweeted that clip of himself, of the Colonel Sanders clip. And I thought, good for him. Way to be.
Yeah, that actually is. So let's give a salute for Ken to actually retweet that. I mean, how could you not have a sense of humor when your name is Ken Galaxy?
Exactly.
Ken Galaxy.
I mean, we know he owns the cape. We know he owns the cape.
Tights, and at least we hope he's in something more than just a cape. So he's got the whole 9 yards. So yeah, he's a good sport. And always, as is always the case with Twitter tantrums with Kate, we never harass these people. This is not for the purpose of defaming them or engendering some sort of incipient or inchoate slander of them and harassment of them. Leave them alone. They've put things out in public. We're just looking at what they've put in public, and we're having a few laughs. None of it is meant to actually represent these people. So please do leave them alone. Here we have, I believe this is number one in order. Kate, you can tell me, am I wrong or no? Is that right?
So let's see. Oh, yes, sir. So what happened here is, I guess she had kind of come across the conversation that Ken, I think, and myself and some other archangel was involved, and I think maybe Stephanie and a few other people from your community had really like kind of been conversing with Ken all day long about gender roles and traditional gender roles. And I had said earlier on that they had always worked. And
Mm-hmm.
then when I got home from the gym and saw Twitter notifications, and she had been, I guess, conversing with other folks, but she said something to the effect of, um, when, if you mean by always work, um, domestic violence and marital rape, then I guess they always worked. And I thought that is just beyond an insane thing to tie in with, traditional roles. So traditional gender roles always
That
meant
was with Ken.
that. No, sir, that was with Miranda. So,
Okay, I
so
thought.
that's
Okay,
what, yeah, yeah. So she had taken what I had said to Ken earlier,
I
and
see. I
then
see.
was responding to it, like building off of it. And so I guess she and Archangel had kind of also been in like a back and forth. And then she said to him that marital rape is a traditional value, and so is child marriage. Own
Oh
it.
my,
Yeah.
hold on. Going too quickly. Marital rape is what? Now this woman here, you can tell by the look of her that she's total upstanding citizen of an insane asylum, and clearly very anti-white person. Not just by the look of her, I mean, but what she ends up, the kinds of things that she ends up saying. I believe this is the same one that I've heard little bits and pieces about, although I'm seeing this stuff for the first time. And Piers Taylor asked me, and I said it was okay indeed. He said, is it okay to call it TTs with Kate? Yes, you can call it TTs with Kate, brother. That's funny. Archangel says, this makes my day seeing my tweets on the stream. Well, cool, man. I'm glad it does. Morb is here. Hello to you. And all right, make sure I didn't miss anybody. Please make sure you tag me if you have something that you want heard. Maybe if you got a joke. But yeah, so this Miranda writes here is saying marital rape is, capital IS, a traditional value, as is child marriage. Own it. Own it. Own it. You're the villain. Own it. Your people are evil. You know, own it. You have to suffer because at some point in the past, something may or may not have happened. But of course, it just gets wilder and wilder. What will be next if we don't put an end in the white positive sphere to this anti-white nonsense? What's next? What did white men do? White men genocided all white women. Own it. Own it. They killed them all off. But we have them today. Shut up. Genocide is your value. Okay, so she came out and she said, obviously this is mental. And go ahead. What happens now with
So yeah,
Archangel?
so she said that that obviously those were traditional values because clearly it's all the same. And then Archangel pushed back on that and said that, imagine hating an entire race and gender of people, um, and obviously specifically white males, and actually believing that you're still a good person. And so,
Oh, wait. That was great.
that was great.
I love my swashbucklers. I love them. We have our swashbucklers are going to become things of legends. They're going to write books. They'll tell stories in distant lands about our swashbucklers. We go into these conversations, and I really want you to appreciate this, folks. Archangel is really exemplifying this at this moment. But see it with so many. I see it with so many, and I think maybe we'll be showcasing maybe more people from the community who's swashbuckling, getting into these conversations, and demonstrating the morally superior position that wins our brothers and sisters to us, and that defeats anti-whites, makes them really neutralizes them, because then many of them, maybe not the most radical, end up questioning their agenda. So that was just fantastic. A great response. Go
It
ahead.
really was. Archangel really takes people down in a really classy way on Twitter. He's got a really, really classy way about him. So he pushed back on that. And then she pushed back on that, saying no such thing as race. And male is sex, not a gender. You seem confused. How condescending is that?
No such thing as race. No, and of course we know. I don't know that somebody says what is maybe the obvious here, but they have no problem with identifying the white race when it comes to victimizing. No such thing as race. Male is a sex. You seem totally condescending, and that's a great many females speak that way, and that's how they manipulate. They emote rather than use reason and logic to win conversations. It's just, you've been a bad boy. It's the finger wagging. You right there, blame and shame you. And one of the best ways to beat that, folks, is to just point out that they're blaming and shaming, and then blame and shame them right back. So, all right, let's move on to, unless you had something you wanted to say about, wait a second, Kate. Tell me about this, her name here. Her handle and her name on Twitter. What is this?
Well, at the end, we'll get to see the screenshot I took of when she blocked me. I took a screenshot of her Twitter account and the whole the whole name.
Okay,
but
we'll get to that then.
Yeah, but I love her name.
Miranda. All right, here we go. Is this right order?
Yes, sir. So then when she said that marital rape, she said, if you mean by traditional values, domestic violence and marital rape, I responded with, no, I meant have always worked. How do those words sound like domestic violence? Not even remotely the same. And I said, I don't even know how to respond to this level of crazy. And I said, you are insane. Own that.
Wonderful. That was fantastic. That's funny. You're insane. Own it. But you can see, in all seriousness, I mean, I'll throw these things in because this is what I do, my whole life, that how is it that anti-whites win the conversation? Because they have a story that they keep the conversation in. They use concepts that they keep the conversation in a story, and in that story is where they win. On that playing field, they hold the moral high ground. That's why you refield it to our story, where we are the heroes and those who victimize us are the villains. Those who victimize us has to prove that they're not anti-white. That's splendid. We do have, let me see in the live chat, if anybody financially gifts at any point over the course of the gathering, I will read it as soon as I see it, no matter what dollar amount it is. Just so we can have community engagement. We had a moment ago, it looks like Bryce is here. Hey, Rory Herbert is here. Great to see you, brother. Daniel is here. Says, what's Daniel say? What he's asking, what's a God King Miranda? Hobgoblin? She might be. We have these things from like our lore from the past. How do we know they never went away? How do we know that they just didn't? Maybe the descriptions of them as big and grisly and hideous and etc. and green and whatever it is. Maybe that was just to convey what they look like on the inside. But that's a great point. We also have Morb saying that he was on MGTOW. You were on a MGTOW channel, or you had one back in the day. He says, and I spoke about how gender roles worked for thousands of years and was eventually deplatformed. Just a warning, this is a red flag for YouTube. Well, it depends, good brother, on how that is conveyed. I'm the channel owner, and this is a guest who's come on the channel, and she is sharing her views, and we are hearing the views on the other side as well. We're hearing from Miranda. We're hearing from Ken. And so on that basis, it might be quite different than what maybe you had going before. It's very easy to upset radical anti-white feminists and get them to like group report you and this sort of thing. And depending on where you are on your channel and what else you said, it can have different outcomes. And we had what was the other one I wanted to read? Oh, Rax saying, instead of it being TTs with Kate, that it would be a better title if it was Kate's TTs. Maybe we'll switch it to that. That's pretty funny. That's pretty funny. That is pretty that's pretty funny. All right. And we also already have the great Slots, resident philosopher, has swept into the room over on Cash App. We love you, brother. And he writes here with $2 US. He says, DUIs are apparently an Oktoberfest value. Okay. DUIs, apparently an Oktoberfest value. I have no idea what that's connected to. Maybe you could jump into either the live chat, tag me, or over on Entropy and give us the rest of that. Thank you so much, though, brother. $2 from Slots. And Rory just tagged me. We'll hear what he has to say as we go to the next slide. Do you have to serve in the Navy to be a swashbuckler? If so, I cannot comply. No, my friend. It's a whole new swashbucklers. Think Three Musketeers, think Zorro, think any of the swashbucklers throughout time. And we are the modern day swash. So it can be, you can have served in the Navy, or you can just have maybe seen the water, and that's all it takes. So then you could be one of us. You can be a swashbuckler too. All right. Oh my God. This is a bigger slide with God King Miranda here. What's going on with this one?
After she and Archangel had their initial back and forth, I guess I got her attention. And so she then kind of laughed at me and she said, well, when I said, for her to own it because she was insane. And then she said, to be honest, I'd say y'all white supremacists are anti-white because you make white people look like feral animals. Now, at this point, the only interaction that she and I had were what you saw, where she accused me of supporting marital rape and child marriage and domestic violence. And then I said,
and of course, wait a second. That's always the go-to, right? That's always like the most normal thing that you suspect of your interlocutor. You're like, oh yeah, you support child rape?
Exactly.
Child brides and rape of your wives? Okay, go ahead. What did you say in response to her?
So then she said, you make white people look like feral animals. And I responded, and at first I was really taken aback because I'll be honest, I've only been in the Twitter sphere for like 2 weeks now. I've not had much experience at all on social media. I was never allowed to have it growing up, didn't have Facebook or anything. So I am brand new to all this. I was really taken aback. I still am when people attack me online, strangers. I'm like, what in the heck is this? I'm a nice person. If you knew me, if you got to know me, you would like me. Like, I think that's like every girl's go-to in our head is like, like even ISIS. We're like, well, if ISIS just got to know me, they would like me. I mean, we all just want to be liked. Yes.
Yeah, and don't be like the idiot boyfriend or husband or whatever, son, whatever it is. That's like, okay, I'll go along with that, because then you end up on like a little bicycle trek across Afghanistan or wherever it was, and you lose your head after losing your head. So you start off losing your head listening to such an argument come out of a woman's mouth, and then you literally lose it on your little bicycle. If they just knew how nice we were, if they just get to talk with us, it'll be, all the way up to the end, maybe when they're sawing it off.
Exactly. I'm just like, this can all be worked out. I'm
a nice person.
Yep.
I will send you a card every whatever holiday you celebrate.
Exactly. What is it? what is it? Rashana? I forget. Rosh Hashanah? I don't
I
know
don't
what they
know.
celebrate over there. But yeah, we'll get some of those cards out. But
We'll send them out.
that's the thing with girls is we all want to be liked internally, so we're always like, so when these strangers come at me online, I'm like, oh my gosh. So I was really shocked. And I didn't actually respond very well at first because what I responded with, I didn't. What I responded with was I said, well, actually you'll see in the next slide because I don't want to quote myself
Oh,
without.
okay.
So yeah.
We'll pull up the next slide. And I think who said here that she looks Ash, hello to you. Clompus here as well. Great to see you all. That she looks unhappy. Maybe a tad. Maybe a tad, right in that picture right there. Can you see my cursor, folks? Yeah. She looks
Yeah.
a tad unhappy. You know
She
that
looks like she's in charge of the place where like dreams go to die.
Yes. Yes, she greets you at the door. Where are your dreams? We're going to kill them. The sad thing, she looks like she could be like a pretty lady, but this is what anti-whiteism does to a person. It just eats them out from the inside. It eats your soul first and then spits it out at the other end. And then you become the door man or door woman at the dreams graveyard. All right, let's see what God King Miranda, God King. I wonder when she's using Twitter, or is that like, is there are certain hours that she's actually on and then the rest of the time she's not? Sort of like, okay, this is your playtime. We'll take that tight white jacket off.
Yeah, on her page, it said before she blocked me, I got to see what it looked like. And it said, Miranda wants her followers to revolt. It's a whole thing. She's got a whole thing going on over there.
Oh boy.
Oh,
Oh
yeah.
boy. I have a feeling, folks, that uh, Kate's TTs is going to get increasingly interesting each episode because I know Kate's going to be, these people are going to be coming out of the woodwork to try to take her down and take down the rest of our swashbucklers in argumentation. So, and trust me, they're perfect. All right, go ahead. What does it say here?
So it says, I said to her, I said, you just called me a racist name because I'm white. And that obviously is not what you should say because you don't use
Oh,
the word racist.
yes.
But
I am going to so kick your ass that you used an anti-white slur. The anti-white slur. Oh my gosh. You're trying to just walk by it real quick. I noticed that. You're like, well, I use this and that's something you don't
I
use.
was
But
gonna
next.
point out that I said anti-white in the very next tweet. Like
Oh, okay. So you're
yeah.
trying to redeem yourself. I see.
After I realized what I had said, because what she called me was a white supremacist, and I was just like stunned. I was like, I am not, and then I started to think, oh my gosh, like where
You
does she get off and the audacity? And I realized she's got God in her name, but does that count? Can you make those kind of judgment calls? And like all that's going on in my head. And then I'm like, you just called me a racist name because I'm white. And I said, so you are
Okay, no,
anti-white.
you're still getting, even though you tried to redeem yourself there's punishment that is definitely coming for you. See, you immediately like capitulate. You're like, I'll be in your story, Miranda. What am I like in your story? Well, you're
I
just this
already knew.
evil,
I knew what was
bloodthirsty,
like in her
child eating.
story.
Huh?
Yes, I knew what I was like in her story already,
Uh-huh.
and I didn't like it.
Cindy Ben is here. Okay, so now you try to redeem yourself. You're like, oh shit, you thought twice, you came back, and what now?
Well, I said instantly, I said, so you are anti-white, as I figured. I said, would you tell anyone of another race they are too much of their race? No, only white people can be too white, right? No one else can be too much of who they are. You are a vile anti-white, good grief. Because what you can't see
Yes.
here, because she had blocked after she blocked me. So this tweet in the middle here, and you'll actually be able to see it later on because I did get a screenshot before she blocked me, but it says that she went on my Twitter timeline and that my timeline was full of whiteness and that my whole identity was constructed on whiteness and that I was basically too white, she said, because she said whiteness is nothing.
Yeah, it's so, again, absolutely proving that the Go Free method is 100% accurate about anti-whiteism. And you can see right here specifically in what she was saying. I guess she deleted it, but what Kate is saying that she had said, right to an attack that it's whiteness, of course, their anti-white slur, another one of their concepts that we don't use immediately. That is not, you don't exist. That's an unbelievable insult. But all right, let's go. Like, I wonder what she would say if you picked any non-white group. Don't do it. But if you picked any non-white group and you said they don't actually exist, so if they cease existing, it doesn't matter because they didn't exist before. Okay, really insane. But okay.
So this is the tweet that was deleted. I did get a picture of it before she deleted it, and she said, because whiteness is a huge part of your identity. A cursory glance at your timeline shows that, and it's an empty, culture-free social construct. So she was telling me that my people are a culture-free social construct. And I said, so you are an anti-white. And then that's when I said, would you tell anyone of another race that they are too much of their race? No, only white people could be too white.
Only white people can be too white. Yeah, what is she? I want to ask the chat and get their thoughts. What is she a god king of? What do you think she is the god king of? Do you think, is she like a heavy online gamer? Is this who you're coming up against in World of Warcraft or whatever the kids are playing out there? Shauna's here. Great to see you, sister. I mean, what could she possibly be a god king? Is it god king of cats?
No, I think she's the god king of squirrels because they are spawns.
Oh, because there's evil as she is?
Absolutely.
The god king of squirrels. What was Rory saying? I think Rory said, bring in the swashbuckling groundhogs. We haven't recruited any yet, but when we do, you better believe that we will share them with everyone. Self-hatred. Cool Papa J Magic is here. She's the god king of self-hatred if you're a white person. And don't you know that if you just get rid of a specific entire group of mankind, then this God King Miranda all of a sudden just won't have these thoughts anymore. They're just gone. They just disappear. It's a neat little trick. Let's see what's next.
And then she resorts, after I told her that she was anti-white twice, and then she got kind of intimidated by that. And I said, you wouldn't tell any other race that they were too white. And she said, too white? And then she said, I am effing translucent. That doesn't mean it's a culture or a race. It's nothing. So she was saying that she herself is nothing.
All right, I'm sitting up here now. I'm getting ready to put on my boxing gloves. That's despicable. Too white? LOL. I'm effing translucent. Okay, so that's how she feels. This is what anti-whiteism has done. She's translucent. I don't know. Maybe she is. Maybe when you maybe she had to add something so you can actually see through. Maybe she's a ghost. Maybe that's what you've been arguing with, is some vicious anti-white ghost. That doesn't mean it's a culture or a race. It's nothing. Wow. Okay. So what did you then say, Kate?
So I said, so being white is nothing, but would you say that about another race? No, you wouldn't. So you are anti-white.
Nice. Great retort.
And then she responded with, race is a false construct, silly girl. And I said, wow, but my timeline is full of quote unquote whiteness. Which is it? And then I said, it doesn't matter. You're still anti-white, because basically she was saying your timeline is full of whiteness, but then whiteness doesn't exist and it's nothing. And I'm like, well, that makes no sense. But either way, it didn't matter, because the bottom line is she's still anti-white.
Oh, yeah. She's just absolutely sick, I tell you, with anti-whiteism. And she has one of these, just the head, and she's looking up like at the ceiling. She's like, these pictures, ladies, when you do these, let me just tell you, listen up, gals. When you give us the headshot and it looks like you're trying to see what's on top of the Eiffel Tower, we know some things about you. We know a thing or two. You've just communicated. It's not like, we're totally confused at that point. Guys look at it and go, wow, I'm going to make an assessment about her height and weight, and it's all proportionate. No. So
is that why people do it?
That is why.
The top.
That is why they look up at the Eiffel Tower. What's on top of the Eiffel Tower? Oh, it's my cell phone taking a selfie. That's what it is. It's my selfie on top of the Eiffel Tower to get a good photo of me staring up at the heavens so that gravity can assist me in misleading all those who look at my photograph.
Well, gravity can work with you or against you. I saw
gravity. Well, that's the thing. That's the thing is,
yeah.
In the photo, you got this looking up photo. It's helping. But then when you're in person, oh boy, gravity's not helping. It's the exact opposite. Things are getting pulled down to around the ankle level, and it's not a pretty sight. Okay, what is this?
So then what happened after I called her anti-white several times?
Oh my gosh.
Then all of a sudden, God King Miranda of North America demands her subjects revolt, blocked me.
Wow. You crushed her. Look at the power, folks, just as an aside. Look at the power. Yeah, bait and switch, Rags says. Yeah, bait. Probably a lot of bait that she feeds on at the aquarium downtown. But look at what happened, how quickly Kate dispatched, even when Kate made the mistake. Look how easily she dispatched some anti-white calling herself God King of North America.
Archangel had already also been engaging too. And
nice.
She was engaging with him at the same time that she was engaging with me. And she blocked him like right when she blocked me as well. So I think between the both of us repeatedly calling her anti-white, she was like, okay, I'm done.
So it's almost like this whole go free method works. It's almost like she had to just retreat. This is a radical anti-white, and she came up against two champs and immediately ended up having to retreat because you both would not allow her to put you all in the anti-white narrative. That's fantastic. Boom, indeed, Archangel says. Roger is here.
Roger knows about squirrels.
Well, yeah, he says, you can catch a rabbit, but a squirrel will tear you up.
Indeed, they will.
Montana Kid said she ran away. Well, maybe rolled. Maybe rolled or ran. I mean, whatever, right? We don't exactly know what her means of locomotion is. I mean, who knows? A lot of anti-whites, they have that whole snail and slug means of locomotion. There's a trail behind them. But poor Miranda here, she had to flee for the hills. After saying there's no such thing as white people, you have no culture, you're just a nothing. And then saying that she's translucent to insult white people. Yes, she's been told how much that fair skin is dreadful. And that's where she ended up.
So that was a fun back and forth. And as I said, I wasn't the only one that was going back and forth with her. There were other people involved. I know for sure Archangel was one of them. We both got blocked at the same time. I think other members of your community had also been going back and forth. So I think that there were other people to thank for that as well.
Well, big congratulations to everybody who went back and forth with the God King of anti-whiteism. And I guess she didn't have a lot to bring to the fight, and she was very easily defeated. And you know what? I bet she's it's smarts. I bet she's walking around cussing, and she probably beat her cats and whatever other animals that are in her home trapped and can't escape. I bet she beat them. Who knows? Who knows what she ended up doing? Roger says, I was wondering if that is her real hair. Well, it probably is, right? It's probably dyed.
It's probably, yeah. I mean, obviously not the real color, I would think.
Right. Well, I mean, maybe that happens after you've been anti-white after so long. The evil just begins to percolate through the pores, first through the hair follicles, and then everywhere. Maybe we'll check back in with God King Miranda in a couple of years, and she'll be all red. I don't know. But her name's Miranda. Gentiles here says, gentleman says, good evening and salutations, friends. Well, a big good evening to you. She ran away. Let's see if I missed anything from anybody before we get on to Ken. Okay, that looks good. I'm going to look up through the live chat. Klomp says she chum bucket. What else? Did anybody else have any ideas about what this woman is a god king of?
Sadly, when I got on her account before she blocked me, she actually said that she is a god king of abortions. Access to abortions is her thing.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's quite sad, actually.
A god king of abortions?
Access to abortions. Yeah, that was her thing. And her account was all like Roe versus Wade and right to abort. And yeah, it's very sad. It's sad to see someone that obsessed with killing babies.
That's a sick Miranda. That's a very sick Miranda.
Yeah.
Who probably got her name from the arrest of her mother. Marlene says she's the god king of envy. I think you're right. Shauna says that's some sickness. That is definitely some sickness. Franklin says of box wine. She's the god king of box wine. Make sure folks, if you really want me to see what you're writing, I mean, I might see if you don't tag me, but if you really want me to see, just make sure you tag me. Did somebody write of bitchiness? Or maybe I just was imagining that. Klom said she waddled. Maybe she waddled. And maybe it was like one of those horror movies where she's like walks on her hands backwards up the stairs. Maybe she's a demon. Maybe she's possessed. Well, we know she's possessed by anti-white demons. All right, let's go ahead and move on to Ken Galaxy.
I'm excited. I'm starting to feel a little bit of like, like friendly back and forth camaraderie.
That's funny.
With Ken Galaxy, because it's like, he's going to oppose everything that's right in the world. And his views are everything that's wrong in the world. But you know what, though? Ken's always going to be there to oppose you. And you need that in your life. Everyone does.
That's funny. Well, he's Colonel Sanders by day, Ken Galaxy by night. When the symbol, what is the symbol that they would shine up into the clouds to get Ken Galaxy to come out of the house? To come out from underneath of the bullwhip that his wife is using on him. What would be the symbol that would finally rouse him from that? All right, we do have Pierce Taylor over here. Thank you so much with $5 hopping dollars. And those are some of the best dollars on planet Earth. $5 hopping dollars. And he writes, Jason, I was surprised by the libelous and factually inaccurate hit piece on you published on Countercurrent's website. I thought Greg was trying to run an intellectually honest platform. I was clearly very wrong. I really appreciate you saying that. And it's absolutely true. I think I might return to that at the end of the show today so that when I share with everybody what Greg had to say to me and what's going to be happening moving forward, we'll just revisit that and kind of inform that overall incident. Sloth's also financially gifts $3 here as well. Thank you so much, dear brother. He says, Kate and Archangel were obviously, in quotes, trying to recruit the anti... They were obviously, yes, just ask Greg and that know nothing lousy author, that's what was clearly trying to happen. There you had an obvious radical anti-white, and it was just obvious as can be that Kate, Archangel, and others were just trying to recruit her to the white sympathetic sphere by running her off into the hills.
And it did not go well.
It didn't go well.
We need to review our strategy. Our recruitment strategy is not panning out.
It's not panning out. Shut up, you anti-white bitch. That doesn't seem to work very
Come
well
to
for the
find out,
recruiting.
that's not bringing them over.
Okay, so Sloss finishes here with, and laughing at her is another example of. So yes, laughing is at a person is a great way to bring them over. And he says the evidence is stacking up counter currents. Yeah, it's so true. It's so true. It's not like we have tens of thousands of hours of work of what we're actually doing, right? That's hilarious. Thank you both for that. Slotz also said in the question widget, DUI joke was about the traditional values being about rape. Oh, I see. So, right. So she was saying the traditional values is about child marriage and rape. And then so is DUI. That's also one of the traditional values. Sure. It makes perfect sense. Slotz, she probably thinks that. She, in between contemplating how, when, and where to kill unpregnant babies, she's thinking about how everything awful in the world, including allowing white people to live, is a traditional value that we have to get rid of. And quite naturally, I would want her on our side. I would want her attending our meetings. Isn't that right, Greg? I would want her, obviously. I mean, I got 2 knees, and obviously this one, she can have one of those knees. That's where I want this flaming psychotic Miranda, God King of unscrupulousness and murder of the white race. Popcorn Power, great to see you. Unpregnant baby, unborn babies. Dyed red hair is about to run yes, that's right. She's about to start up a GFC, Franklin says. Rax says, traditional bullwhip by Colonel Sanders' wife. Yeah, exactly. She's got him under tight lock and key, Colonel Sanders. But remember now, Colonel Sanders has a time machine because he can just go back and he can just change all of this. He can just make, so he's going to entertain you now. He's going to make sure that he has a bit of fun, and then he's going to go back in time and make it so that none of this ever happened. But until then, we're going to go ahead and bring this up so we can have a bit of fun. Let's see. It's flashing on my screen. Is it steady for you all?
No, sir. It's flashing on my screen too.
Okay, so let's see if I can remove that and try that again. Oh, it is flashing for everybody. I don't know. Let's try it again. Okay. Here we go now. It looks like it's steady. It was like strobe lighting. I was about to have a seizure. Probably Miranda. It's just right now she's got like her fingers to her temples. She's really contemplating. She's like, do I ruin their stream or do I join them?
Tough call. Tough call.
All right. Here we have Ken. And he's back. Colonel Sanders.
Ken and I had been going back and forth about the fact that I made the statement that I felt that things were better when men were generally in charge, and when women did not work and did not vote and stayed home, and their place was to raise their children and support the men in their lives. And he pushed back on that, and then I listed a bunch of things that I felt were worse now that women have this, independent equality and all that nonsense. And so he said,
well, the equality, hold on, the it's not equality, of course. That's just what they would call it.
That would be,
it's domination. It's domination. And the colonel here knows it well. as he's right now, as he's listening, he's tied to an ottoman in his living room, and she's left for the night with another man. So she was kind enough, though, to leave this on so he could watch.
Well, that's nice of her. So
how are you tracking adultery? There are fewer divisions between men and women when you respect women and accept their domination as dominatrix.
So, yeah, I told him, I said, hey, since women have been this, quote unquote, equality and all this, adultery is worse, divorce is up, mental health issues are up, children's mental health issues are up, and all this. And the only thing that he could really push back on, he's like, well, how can you track adultery. And I mean, obviously,
How can you track it?
it's true that
I
I mean,
know.
people admit to
Yeah.
it that obviously cheating is up and extramarital affairs and all. I mean, it's a thing that happens, Ken. But he wants like numbers or whatever. So,
Oh, well, yeah, this is the thing, and this is where so many who argue the data, I've watched it over the years. They argue with data. They get a lot of that data from, people like Taylor, and then they go into these debates, and then somebody like a Ken will say, "No, I totally ignore what you just had to say, and here is my data, and where are numbers for this other thing?" And of course, you can't have all the data in your head, and you can't bring it in your briefcase. And that's how these people win. They win all the time. Trust me, Ken would be mopping the floor with people in other circles. And to be quite honest with you, I would probably take a lot of joy in watching that. But yeah, how are you tracking adultery? What if I allow it? What if I want it to happen? What if I'm so happy she tied me to this ottoman and then left me here while she went out with 2 other men? So what does
then
you actually say here regarding the advancements women have made?
right. So then he said that he said, the thing about respecting women and accepting the advancements. And I said, regarding the advancements, quote unquote, that women have made, it was white men who gave white women the right to vote, to not be considered property, to be hired in all fields. White men gave that to us, white women. How about instead of stabbing them in the back, how about we say a simple thank you?
Whoa, boy, I haven't even looked at what he wrote back, but I'm going to imagine that that's going to cause him to come unglued, because if he didn't, she would really beat him. So he's got to be simping all day long. And it's got to be very confusing, because
Yeah.
here you are, and we have Ken essentially on the Kate TT's show. And so he doesn't know. He's got to be confusing. All these other women in his life are anti-white, including his wife and mother and sisters and cousins that are female and etc. And then here you come and you're like, women should say thank you. Okay, so what happens next?
So I had basically asserted that men gave us those rights, and Ken was like head exploding. And he said, no, women earned that. So we earned those rights
Oh, you earned them.
by fighting back against the restrictions men placed on them. If they hadn't, men would have never given those freedoms. And he said, you sound like you have Stockholm syndrome. So I'm just obviously speaking from someone who has Stockholm syndrome. But Ken says
Oh
that,
my gosh.
yeah, but Ken says that men would have never given women those rights, and that women just took those rights, which I, I push back, as you'll see in the next messages. I was like, but Ken, I mean, let's think about this logically. Like, if men were in charge and men were beating and raping women at will, which is what he said was happening, and they were in charge of everything, in charge of the courts, in charge of, all possible fields that where women could go to get help, and they just had, a monopoly on everything. And then women were able to fight back against that and just take those rights. I mean,
Yeah,
come on. Yeah.
somehow Ken has come to the conclusion that women could take over society and get what they want, even though women could defeat all men in society, but they can't defeat the single man in their house who's beating and raping them and selling the children off for marriage and everything else. So it's kind of a fascinating idea to advance. So no,
Right.
women earn that by fighting. They fight. They're fierce. Have you watched them fight? They're fierce. I've had my ass kicked many times by a woman. They fought back against the restrictions that men had placed on them. If they hadn't, men would have never given those freedoms. You said they fought back all the way up to being dominatrix. You sound like you have Stockholm syndrome. Have you tried my Stockholm chicken? It's spicy. Check it out.
Exactly.
Stockholm syndrome.
Mhm.
So yeah, you're being the assumption there. You're being abused, and now you have aligned with your abuser instead of delightfully assuming the role that nature and or God has equipped a woman to be able to do that are things that men cannot do, instead of embracing that and becoming a team, he says, "Oh no, you're just being abused. You're supposed to compete with." Well, I mean, because if you were competing against Ken, you would kick his ass, I'm sure.
Well, I guess so. But yeah, Ken and I have already had several back and forths. He's really concerned about me because
I bet.
he asked me why I felt the way I did, and I said because I was raised in a family that had traditional values, and he was really concerned about that. I'm sure he thinks that there must be some really bad things going on in my
Really
life
bad.
to make me think the way I do.
She came from a traditional house. You know what's going on in there. Those traditional houses, they're beating them and raping them and selling them off. Traditional homes. Not like this home where I have to put on this gimp suit and I crawl around on my hands and knees for my woman, and then she can beat me and sodomize me and do whatever she wants, where everything is normal and healthy.
Exactly, because that to these people is normal.
Oh, Nathaniel Nelson, and great to see you, brother, says the Ken Galaxy signal is a piece of chicken. It's a giant like drumstick up on the clouds. I really have to go, honey. Please untie me. Somebody needs Ken Galaxy. All right, who else was here talking? Let me see. Say hello to everybody. Hello. Remember, tag me if you have something really good. Buscape is here. Great to see you. Says they live in Kentucky. That's where they have Kentucky Fried Chicken, of course. But you can put that signal up in the night sky anytime you want, anywhere you want in Ken Galaxy. As long as his wife says it's okay, he'll show up. Elaine Sabatino says that the Miranda was the god. She's the god queen of chlamydia. And she'll be Mr. V's trusted assistant. Yeah, of course. That's what's going to happen. Just ask Greg Johnson. Over there at the very intellectual, the very highbrow tabloid tier webzine that has no problem telling blatant lies and leaving that up. Victorian Time Traveler's with us. He says, does he? I've spent a lot of time going around destroying other people's time machines. Only I get to F with the space-time continuum. Well, that's actually a good question. I guess Ken Galaxy is suddenly panicking, trying to get loose of the bonds on the ottoman. Blast it, I can't get off this ottoman. She always ties the leather too tight. Okay, what else do we have here? Who else is here with us having some fun tonight? White Wolf is here, and he has he's got a little bow and arrow emoji, and then a peanut, a trap, and then a squirrel. So a little squirrel comes up to get at the peanut, and there he's fallen for the trap, and White Wolf will neutralize the threat. All right, what else do we? Sunglasses is here. Says international finance wanted women to join the workforce in the first place, and that's all about anti-whiteism. Is all of these things. It's this mindset that is motivated to destroy everything that is white and the projection of white people, and you see that everywhere, no matter what it is. Montana Kid says snake oil. Not sure what that is, but yeah, the drumstick. I love it. Franklin says Ken is here to clean up the women's bathroom. Yeah, that's what you would project the drumstick into the sky for. We need Ken Galaxy. All right. Why don't we go ahead and proceed? Did I put up the next one yet or no? We can do that.
No, sir, not yet. So then when he said that women had earned the rights, I responded with, really? So men are these awful people who had total power and control over women and all of society, and you're telling me that women just took that control from them? I said, LOL, yeah, because people in total control wouldn't be able to stop women from doing that.
That's a big reality slap, my dear. You just you had a paddle. You had an oar, and with reality written across it, and you have smacked that metaphorically across Colonel Sanders' face. And I imagine he's gonna whine, probably cry a little bit, maybe shit his pants while he's on the ground, and then he's gonna climb back up to his feet. And what does he have to say for us here?
And he says, well, women are 50% of people. Whatever power a group has will struggle when the majority of people want change, especially when you have underestimated the contribution of women, which you seem to do. Okay, so in Ken's
Whoa.
mind, because there were a large number of women, suddenly that will somehow allow them to gain physical strength, which we don't have typically, and also strength against the system, which according to him, we had none of.
Yeah, of course it makes perfect nonsense. That you have it doesn't matter how many women there are. The people who are in charge wield the power. The steps to unseat them wouldn't even be allowed to be taken. That's something that a lot of people don't seem to understand. The only time when there is like a turning over is a consequence of that conversation in the holders of power causing upset, circumstances upsetting the holding of power. A people in servitude or a people who are restrained cannot rise up against it. And the simple reality, when those in power are unified and when they have a single idea that's motivating them, there's simply no way. And so you see this sort of illogic come out of people like Ken when they're like, well, they took it from them, because they don't want to give credit to white people. They don't want to give credit to white men. And so they have to say, well, they took it from them, but at the same time, they were totally powerless and couldn't accomplish or do it. Women inserted themselves into the military. Women pushed themselves into the universities, rather than saying white men allowed this to happen out of the goodness of our heart.
Yeah. Yeah, no, he wasn't going to give that to white men at all, was not going to concede that white men had to have given those rights and powers to women, because in his mind, he honestly feels, and this is I identify with Ken. Maybe this is why I feel friendly towards him. He has a lot of feminine traits. And so I can kind
I'm
of
sure
put
he would
myself.
actually be so proud to hear that, but keep
He would
going.
be. I think he would. So I can put myself in his head, and he is feeling so strongly about this that he just needs it to be true. I've done the same thing. I've been there, Ken. I know how you feel. And obviously, I mean, as a logical person, I have to tell him he's wrong. But that feminine girl side of me is like, don't back down, Ken. Just hold on to this. Make it true. In your head, it's true. Tell your truth.
Oh yeah, your truth. All right. White Wolf is saying we should just have family voting. But what happens next here? Looks like you have a response for Ken. Oh no, this was the one we just looked at. I got to click forward. There we go. This is your response.
And then I said, look at North Korea. If someone or a group has power and they want to keep it, they do. Men who, according to you, had total control and could just rape and abuse women at will, gave these rights to women. If they could abuse women and get away with it, then why would they have to give power? In North Korea, probably more than 50% of the people want to live differently. How is that whole taking power back working for them? Men were kind enough to want women to have rights. A thank you is in order. And
Yes.
still, he's just not backing down. He's gonna you'll see here he doubles down.
That is epic. You had to crush him. Yeah, because that's reality. No way that Ken took that well. I wonder how many times he had to change his pants. All right.
And
And
it's very true too. Like North Korea is, I mean, that's the example of what Ken is saying. If what he was saying was true, if one group could hold ultimate power, and then another group who had enough members but no power could just decide that they were going to take power, then North Korea would have done it by now. Like, but it doesn't work that way. You have to have not just the desire to have rights, you have to have that other group that has power, they have to give a little for some reason. And if you don't have physical strength to make them give, then they're going to have to come to some sort of moral decision in their own heads that they have to give some of the power. And that's what happened with men and women. And Ken's just not willing to acknowledge that. So he says North Korea doesn't prove that regimes can never change. What about all the ones that did? Just because men had the power to abuse women. So still, he's saying that, they totally had the power. But listen, he's generous here, guys. He says that doesn't mean that all men used it or all men wanted it. So not all men wanted to beat women at this time. So Ken's giving a little here.
He's got to give a little at this point because of how obviously wrong he is. He's got to say, well, and this is still an attempt by Ken to deny gratitude to white men. He doesn't want to say, and we see this all the time in anti-whiteism, you can't have a thank you for all the good that the white race has done, specifically white males. It's all got to be condemnation. It's all got to be how wrong you were. So what he wants to say here is, well, there were like a few of them. So therefore, we don't have to thank you. Therefore, we don't have to be grateful for what the West did. All right. So what did you say in return?
So then I said, so in other words, it is fair to say that some men at that time helped and supported women in their quest for quote unquote equality. So like I asserted at the start, men gave women the rights and power they have. We had to travel to North Korea to get there, but we have arrived.
He had to go all the way to the reality of North Korea, where at any moment, women and children who would like an easier way of life, would like to participate in governing themselves, are on the verge of rising up and taking the institutions away from the communist Koreans in charge.
They just need to talk to Ken because he's got it all figured out.
Ken will tell them, you just go out, you just go over there and you just tell them, hey, damn it. We're gonna be in these institutions. We're gonna rule ours. Just Kim Jong-un, just listen here to me, little man. You just listen here. We're gonna rule ourselves. We're kind of tired of this. And then he would just say, oh gosh, I feel so bad. You all can be in charge. Even then, that's capitulate. So even then, that's acquiescence. That's capitulation. So it has to be further than that. This is what Ken is saying, is that women had no power to control their own lives with one man in their life, their husband. They had no power to control their life, but somehow they were able to go out into the world and physically force their will upon all men in society. What horseshit.
Makes total sense.
This is dumbest horseshit.
It's just like talking to a girl. We are just that logical a lot of the time.
Oh, this is, yeah, exactly. Exactly. That it is. You're right. It is just like talking to a girl. This is where Ken, with a group of guys, he would be absolutely shunned and humiliated. We would mock him for talking and thinking like a woman. And then he tries to even, you've made this great point. And then I see here at the bottom, supporting women to get the rights they deserve is not giving them those rights. Yes, it is, dumb shit. That's exactly what it is, you dumb shit.
And that's what I told him. I said, so in other words, it's fair to say, like I said in the beginning, men gave women the rights and the power they have. And that's where we arrived. But like I said, we had to go all the way to North Korea to get there, Ken and I.
That's a long trip. That's a long journey
to
travel with Colonel Sanders. I mean, I bet it would, I guess the food was probably decent. It was finger licking good, the food. But that's quite a long journey to have to listen to somebody like Ken. So what's happening in this? Well, we do have a $2 financial gift over here on Cash App. Thank you to Western Kind United. says he heard that Greg Johnson is and then a sexual orientation word. And then he says, is likely a Fed. Well, I would not thank you for your opinion. I don't know about the second part. People can be pressed into service. Not saying that's happening there, but can very often just be motivated by things like jealousy, motivated by things like money. So, but thank you very much, Western Kind United.
And it's true here. Alexander Herman in your chat here says most regimes fall because an outside power just as strong or stronger goes after it, not because people inside gain power and defeat it, which is very accurate. And that is what Ken and I were going back and forth on, is that people who are being, quote unquote, according to Ken, controlled and abused and locked away, those people are never going to have the power to just be like, all right, you know what, you're going to let us in your institutions. We've had enough. We've just simply had enough.
Yeah, we've had I'm gonna stomp my little foot on the ground, damn it. I'm gonna stomp my little foot on the ground and you're just gonna do what I say. It's so asinine. This is what folks have to understand. It's sort of like when it comes to the theory of evolution. What works is, and here comes some circular reasoning, what works? Those in power who are not going to secure all of the threads of power, and that means control over those that they control, end up not being in power for long. So what we're left with over time are power structures that are very cognizant of what strings they have to hold to maintain and to grow their power. That's why people within that system can't just stand up and say, I've had enough, let me have, because they would immediately just put that down. They would already have, but certainly by this point in history, the strings that they have to hold. Now, here's the thing, and here's the brilliance, one of the elements of brilliance in the Go Free method, if I do say so myself, and I do, is that when you change the conversation and you change the concepts that are being used, and you insert a new moral imperative, and you understand the human animal, that it is ideas that motivate men and women, then you change that conversation at all levels. You don't have to physically march and take them over. It doesn't have to be everybody gets together and marches down the streets, because when you try to do that, of course, they won't even let you get to that point. They will infiltrate it. Power holders will infiltrate every sort of effort like that and will undermine it before it even got that far. But even if it gets that far, they just machine gun you. Absolutely. I mean, it's just, they just mow you down. It has to be a fractures that are taking place in that oligarchy, and you can see those when in a reading of history, when empires do crumble. You can see there's all this internecine stuff going on. That's not happening in the West with the anti-white oligarchs. Our only hope is a collection of ideas that changes the story, and therefore the moral imperative that everyone views reality, everyone views our lives, their lived experience with. Eventually, percolating throughout society, the concepts employed in the Go Free method will result in members of powerful families, people that can actually make things happen, pushing back against the ideas that have imprisoned Western kind and that victimize us and call that a moral good. So I'm sorry that everybody, though I'm not sorry that everybody else didn't figure this out before me. It just happens to be figured out. And also you have all of these people who are in the Go Free community, White Wellbeing community, who were putting it together themselves. That's how they ended up here, that are champions in their own rights. And so we are looked at with great envy and great jealousy as a consequence. But looks like there's another slide here. What happens here?
So here Ken responded back, because he was not going to back down, even though we had been to North Korea and back. He said, nope, period. The men that supported them were rarely, if ever, in a position to change what rights women had.
Oh, so, boy.
he's saying that there were men, but not there were kins, is what he's saying. He's saying that there
They
were
were
a group
kins.
of kins who wanted women to have power, but they obviously don't. Kin has no power. Like all the alpha males that were in charge weren't going to let kin in the meetings. I mean, who would do that? Even with chicken, maybe he could come drop the chicken off and leave, but he wasn't going to be invited to stay. So he's saying that the kins that supported women had no power, so men did not give women the rights and power they have. And then he said it took sustained and considerable effort from women. And then he told me to maybe take a look at things like the suffragette movement, because that is who really won power. And again, there
Hmm.
is no way that I mean, I have seen video clips of women in Iran protesting the burqa, and the men over there deal with it very differently than the women here were dealt with when they protested and decided that they wanted rights. So the men have to be willing to give in that scenario, or it's not going to happen.
This is why I, as Colonel Sanders by day, Ken Galaxy at night, am so into fried chicken because I'm into clucking and cucking. That's what I do, folks. I cluck and cuck all day long. That's what all men should do. And here's where my Ken Galaxy persona, is reeling it back in, because I don't want you to run away with winning this argument. I'm going to say, nope. The men who helped them were all paraplegic. They were all paraplegic. They were frozen in bed. Whatever, Ken. You still there, Kate?
Yes, sir.
All right.
And so he said here that oh, and then okay, this is when the not so hush puppy, who was another member of the community, and uh, he was also going back and forth with Ken, and he said the suffragettes were a fringe group of women back then. Most women didn't want the 19th, which I think is probably accurate. And he said after the histrionics about Dobbs, maybe we should have listened. And then Ken made this last point down here that I just thought was really craziness. He says enough women wanted the vote that it caused problems for the politicians who were blocking it. So Ken wants us to think that men who were in charge of everything were intimidated by women who were throwing tantrums and demanding the right to vote. And that is why women have the rights they have today.
Enough women wanted the vote, caused problems. You see, they were bitching, and we just couldn't stand their bitching. We just couldn't put up. We just said, just take whatever you want. Idiotic action of men in WW1. Women were even more vital to the.
Oh,
So
yeah.
he's just totally anti-white as all hell, anti-white male.
Mm-hmm.
Totally anti-white male. I'll mention this too about things like the suffragettes and other such movements. The groundwork, by the time you see the bodies of these people, and this is, again, people specialize in things out there. I specialize in thinking, and this is a fact. The groundwork of ideas and a moral imperative is already there by the time you see women able to be out in the streets. And what you're pointing out, Kate, is that in a place where the ideas aren't already in place to permit a thing like a suffragette to happen, or to permit a thing like women getting the right to vote, where that doesn't already exist, when they come out, or if they come out, if they dare, they are immediately, and in those environments, morally put down.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It is simply not tolerated. And there's no debate about it. There's no, and that I think is where, um, honestly, it's where white men in America went wrong, is that they were willing to give women the benefit of the doubt and our ability to be rational and logical and not not stab them in the back with the power that they gave us. And so they really misjudged women. They really did. They gave us too much benefit of the doubt, and it has really backfired on society.
Yeah, it's a really important thing to note. You're absolutely right. It's a really important thing to note that the weaknesses in our thinking, and really in our Western kind, really where this comes from, and women getting all of this power, so that now, in my opinion, they have vastly superior power to men, socially and legally. The reason why is because as the white race, we came to a set of ideas that essentially engendered a whole new line of thinking, and that is that this objective, it's beyond me, turning everything that should have served us, the biology, the actual animals who were creating the ideas, created this like almost like a corporate entity. Like it wasn't a living creature anymore. Now it was just this collection of ideas. And you still see this. I mean, it's so thick in the white race that people, especially like conservative ranks or patriot ranks, we love them all, but they're misled. They will argue, you'll see this, they will argue that the idea that they're advancing is more legitimate because it harms them. It harms me. This abstraction harms me, and therefore it's more legitimate. That is a telltale sign that they are advancing something that is deleterious for us. So this ultimately, you trace this back, it's a weakness in us, not in some other group of man coming up with ideas that can manipulate us. We have created the environment. If you create the environment for weeds to grow in your backyard, you create like a bed of rich soil, you have nothing in it. You don't take any steps to prevent weeds. Weeds will appear. Is it the fault of the weeds, or is it a fault of the environment that was conducive to weeds? Well, It's obviously the fault of the environment conducive to weeds, because it doesn't take an outside group to be able to take advantage of a conducive environment. Mm-hmm. And so that's what we did. And we ended up saying that with these abstractions, people are not born as royals, and so all men are therefore equal. And if it's literally males, then we should also include females, because that will make it more just if it's harmful to us. That would be potentially harmful. There were men all along that were saying this might not be good. I mean, have you been around women? Have you seen how they emote rather than use reason and logic? This might not be good. Yes, but the fact that it might not be good makes it even more legitimate.
Exactly.
And so they went ahead and literally enthroned. I mean, it's like there are in quite a few numbers of kin galaxies out there, Colonel Sanders out there, who have just become these absolute gimps to dominatrix. And sometimes it doesn't, or much of the time, maybe it doesn't take the form of that sort of submissiveness, but it is still surrender in the household. It is still surrender in the relationships of men and women everywhere you look, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. So I had to say that.
It's very sad. I was just going to say that it's so sad to see that, because it builds for such an unhealthy dynamic in relationships, and it absolutely makes women miserable to be in a relationship when they're in charge, because women don't always know what we want, and what we want like now is not what we might want 10 minutes from now, and that does not make us great leaders. And it makes us great at a lot of things. We're creative, we're good nurturers, but leadership is not a good thing for someone who doesn't exactly always know what they want, and who is prone to emotional issues throughout the day. I mean, literally, like, I can be fine and then see like an Instagram clip of a dog with 3 legs and be crying like I just lost a family member to cancer. I mean, it's like, and I don't know why. Like, that's just my brain. And it's like all of a sudden I'm just like, oh my God, somebody has to get into, where's this dog today? Like, I'm like, I
Where
want
is
to
this
adopt
dog
this
today?
dog. Like, I need to find him. Is he okay? I need to make sure he's okay. Like, I mean, girl, we have a lot of emotions. So it's not a good place when guys put us in charge in relationships, because then you're just in for like a serious emotional roller coaster ride constantly.
Oh yeah, it's capricious hell at best. Rack says, ladies in temperance movement was dominance in disguise of family value, and asking, can we do a segment on those ladies who tried to seize power? I don't know if that's like a half joke. Like, what did they, when they stormed the Bastille, the ladies who were
It
just
is interesting, though.
a bunch of broads.
I've never heard of what he's talking about, and I am going to research them. I don't know who those women were, but it would be interesting to learn more about them for sure.
Time Traveler says, we are talking about Greg Johnson, the libertarian politician from New Mexico. Last I heard of him, he was, no, we're talking about Greg Johnson at the Countercurrents webzine. You just look that up, unless I'm missing the joke there, which is possible. Okay, what is this next slide here?
Oh, so this is actually in response to a Not So Hush Puppy, and then me, but me kind of way, way back. Ken and I had already been to Korea together. We were done. I'm at work. I've got stuff I got to do. But he was back and forth with Not So Hush Puppy. And Not So Hush Puppy said that we were stuck living in a matriarchy, and that had been, very detrimental to society. And Ken just lost it. Ha ha ha, the matriarchy. You sound like a 10-year-old railing against his mother because she won't let him have sweets. No real idea of what life is like in the real world. I am not simping. I'm just seeing things as they are, and I'm not complaining that I can't hit women. Who was complaining about that, Ken? Nobody said anything about that.
Oh, that's so funny. First Last is with us. Great to see you, brother. He said, Ken's argument is a straw woman argument. Very witty of you, good sir. It is indeed a straw woman. Wow. Okay. So the matriarchy sound like a 10-year-old kid railing against his mother. Well, I mean, I'm sure that was Ken. I'm sure that was his youth. And then she dominated him, and he learned how to be a good little imp for her, a little gimp for her. Wow. Yeah, he was getting perturbed here, wasn't he?
He really was. He was getting salty. I think it was time for his nap.
I think it was. And you could technically, since you're a female, you could probably order him to take a nap, and he would.
See, that was what was so confusing to me about this conversation I was having with him, is that I didn't understand why he wouldn't just capitulate to me, because according to him, I know better. And so I was like, why? Why is he still pushing back? But no, he was doubling down.
And what's this? This is his Twitter?
I wanted to show, this is his tweet. He retweeted your clip of him, and this is his actual Twitter account. Don't go harass him or anything, but he did retweet. It was right there at the top of his page. He retweeted the Ken Galaxy Kentucky Fried Chicken clip, and I thought, good for him.
That is so funny. Well, yeah, good for him. That's being a good sport, and obviously don't harass him. And he has very different views. But, to be honest, though, maybe he's just playing along now. Maybe he's just going to be the radical, anti-white, abused, browbeaten, and surrendered, gelded husband on Twitter for laughs. Who knows? Maybe he enjoys this.
And I would say here that the person in your chat, the Gentile gentleman who said, the mask slipped, he secretly probably wants to hit women, so he virtue signals publicly to rid himself of the shame of the monster he is inside. Male feminists are always the worst of men. I think that there's some truth to that. I think that probably because these guys take so much garbage from women, and they just take it and take it and take it, and they just don't ever push back, and they never show strength, and they never stand up for themselves. I think that there probably is truth to that, and that Ken probably would like to just maybe deck his wife once in a while if she's really getting on his last nerve, so in his head, because nobody had mentioned hitting women, and then Ken's like, well,
yeah.
I'm not complaining that I can't hit women. Well, Ken, settle down. No one said anything about that. Why are you even thinking about that?
I'm not. I'm just dream about it. I daydream about it all day long. But I promise I'm not complaining about it. Man, I would like to hit that bitch. Last time she ties me to this damn ottoman. And the funny thing is, if he ever got fired up like that, she would be as horny as all get out. But it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen, Ken. I don't see it happening. Well, let's see what everybody else is saying before we let you go. And over here on Entropy, we have Dandy Westman, financially gifting $3. Thank you so much, Dandy. Says, namers cry, go free practitioners fly. Oh, I like that. Question, what is the exact definition of antique nationalism? Antnat. I've heard on these streams. Didn't see it in the Go Free glossary. Yeah, it's not there yet. We'll be there in the next edition or iteration. We'll see, but probably the next edition at least. But essentially it means that they are monomaniacally focused on World War II and imitating that period, the villains in the narrative of the victorious countries, and technically in those countries as well. So they look to, and the whole thing came about because I said, you're never going to take back our destiny when you can find your nationalism in an antique store. When you walk in and this little old lady totters out and you're asking, well, where are the X, Y, or Z? And she takes you over and has to dust the things off. You're never going to succeed like that. And it grew out of that. That's essentially what it means. Now, technically, I guess it really depends on the definition and how we specifically word the definition, because there are people like in Scandinavia mostly, but there are some elsewhere who have a mature approach to doctrines, economic, political doctrines that were originated in that time, or at least came to their zenith in that time. And they're trying to understand and apply that to current circumstances. That's different than what we're talking about when we're talking about these kind of LARPers. And they're everywhere. So that's essentially what it means. Now, those folks are sort of more of a passive compared to what we call the cult nats. Those are the ones that have been coming after us. Those are the ones that if you don't name them, if you don't, etc., then they will slander, misrepresent, destroy character, destroy reputation, death threat, and dox, behaving the exact way that a cult does. So thank you so much for that question, Dandy. And we have Slots back with another $3. Slots is active tonight. Thank you, good sir. Non-racial political motivations, i.e. sex, corporate, etc., are all white negative. The victory is either for our race or anti-white. Celebrations demonstrate motivations. Feminism is anti-white. Beautifully written, brother. Absolutely 100%. Celebrations demonstrate motivations. Correct. That's what they wanted. Whatever they celebrate is what they wanted all along. Mm-hmm. And you're absolutely right. The bottom line is it's either going to be the recapture of our destiny, which is Western kind, a race that we intend to make a people again, or it's going to be the victory of the anti-white. So beautifully written. Thank you for that. And we just had, please get out your raucous emojis, your 07s, some swash flags for the great Mrs. Jess Horst, who just came in with a $25 financial gift. And she says, great role in Kate is fan. So great roll in going free, going free. Great roll in, Kate. Fantastic. Thank you so much for that, Kate. Did you have something you wanted to say in response?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for the compliment. And I just think that women love what women were meant to do and what we were meant to be at its best. She's how many children? 9 children?
Yeah.
That's amazing. Absolutely amazing.
Yep. That's how it's supposed to work. Our families are supposed to work where men and women complement each other, and they go further than they could Nature, God has equipped us differently, and we need to embrace those roles and then make the most as teams. This is something,
Absolutely.
this is why, yeah, exactly. This is why the anti-whites have gone so far at destroying those ideas, at making you think that it's anathema to health. And you see the consequences. In fact, it is nothing but degeneracy and sickness and angst and inability to make decisions and wrecked families and people like Ken coming out to defend all of that as so much superior to this fictionalized history that he
Yeah.
will happily give you a lesson about.
The Gentile gentleman in your chat said that it's very hateful. Was it him or Daniel? It might have been Daniel Hicks said that it was very hateful. Yeah, it was Daniel Hicks said it's hateful of men, and it's hateful of other women too, to want women to um, be stuck working 16 hours a day instead of being home, loving mothers and wives, content with a good man. And he said that is a hatred of women. And so he said, in reality, then the male feminist does really hate women. And that's so true because taking women out of their natural role, what we were born to be, and then putting them in scenarios where they're not comfortable, they aren't going to excel. I mean, there has never been, to my knowledge, and I could be wrong, I don't think there has been, at least in the US, a female CEO that has led a gigantic company to financial success. I do believe that the majority of the time, what has been proven is that women run it into the ground. We are not good leaders. We're not comfortable in those positions. That's not where we're going to be our best. So to take us out of things that we do well and put us in scenarios that we don't do well at all is very hateful.
Yeah, perfectly said. I agree completely. I want to reiterate, women are born with strengths that men don't have, and men are born with strengths that women don't have. That doesn't mean that they are specifically locked into X, Y, or Z. It does mean that, for example, we use a sports analogy. Most people will understand American football. You wouldn't take somebody who is equipped from birth to be a lineman in the professional football league in America, which is going to be a big, very heavy, red muscle fiber, slow twitch kind of a guy, and make him your wide receiver, where you need somebody that's extremely agile, extremely fast twitch muscle fiber, running down the field, being able to make very swift cuts. And then putting that receiver, similarly, in the role of the lineman, he would just get broken into pieces. He would get mowed right down by the defensive line. So it makes sense to make a strong white family that the woman assume the duties that she is better equipped for, and the man assume the duties that he is better equipped for. And it's a partnership, so they work together. That's why anti-whiteism has destroyed the understanding of women and what they are typically, and by far most cases, of course, not all, but equipped for specific tasks, and men for others. They wanted to disrupt and muddy that so that it's perfectly turbid, and then people can't make the decision of, hey, let's maximize our strengths and thereby minimize our weaknesses. And this has destroyed, in my opinion, the white family.
Oh, it
And
has.
yeah,
And
as a
it's
consequence,
made life miserable for white men as well because it
oh
has
yeah,
robbed them of the ability to have futures and have lives and to do what society tells them they should do, which is get out there and be, financially successful and succeed in the business world and so forth. But now they have to contend with all this competition from women, but they can't compete with us fairly. Like men cannot compete with us the way they compete with other men, because that is considered not socially acceptable. So they have to make special rules for us, and they have to give us special exceptions. And so they'll never win, because when you cannot compete with somebody fairly, you're never going to beat them. So they have to constantly capitulate, constantly take the pay cuts, constantly see women being promoted when they don't deserve it. And it's just really, I mean, it demoralizes them. And then why would they want to seek a mate out of a pool of people that continue to rob them of their own futures and their own successes? So it really has created just such a mess of society.
Yeah. Women, similarly, where they're given all of these advantages and leg up, and then they look around at the men who are not succeeding, and they have contempt for them, even though the men are not succeeding, because they're getting all of this preferential treatment, special privileges, and freedom from responsibility.
Yeah.
So this is why we need to be focusing on us. Another huge reason why we have to be focusing on us. Could you imagine, Kate, with all of the problems in the white race, that there are people out there that would spend 90, 95, 100% of their time focusing as much enmity as they possibly could on another group of people, when we have all of these problems that we have to focus on, and that we have created the groundwork for ourselves to be taken advantage of. If you don't attend to that, then it's always going to be someone else taking advantage of our people by way of the groundwork that we have laid, the bed of soil that we have laid out that will surely sprout weeds, because we put that bed out there.
Absolutely.
We have, let's see, Archangel says, no more guilt. To the ant gnats, I say, stop looking into the past stop looking in the past for your nationalism, because it is far easier to create new life than it is to resurrect something that is dead. That's fantastically put. Well done. In fact, it's impossible to resurrect. So well done. And I think Naterific is here. I thought I saw him a moment ago. Reptile is here. Great to see you, good brother. There's Naterific. And pointing out that anti-whiteism was previously almost solely directed at white men, and is increasingly directed at white women as well. It absolutely is, because they don't need so many white women to participate in anti-whiteism anymore to destroy Western civilization, the white man, and all that we have created. They just don't need their help. And you can see another great point, before I let you go, Kate, is that the evidence of the preferential treatment, special privileges, freedom from responsibility, this leg up that they give to women, thereby destroying a man's ability to go out and become his own man, and therefore be able to be a leader and start his family, put him into this submissive role where he's got to be in the matriarch's house, sort of a scenario. That is evidenced not only by witnessing and seeing all of the privileges, the leg up. It's not only witnessed by that, but when you have this phenomenon of these imaginary females, of these females who are born males, when they get to compete on a fair playing field with women, they kick the shit out of them in every scenario.
Exactly.
So this is reality smacking anti-whiteism in the mouth. At least in my opinion, they kick the shit out of them. Maybe you can look into it for yourself. But this is reality, like it was with Ken, smacking the shit out of anti-whiteism. And but trust me, people will have no problem if we do not carry the concepts and get go free to as many people as is needed to change things. People will be able to bend, like the willow, any direction they need at any moment to work with anti-whiteism, because that's what our people have become, unfortunately. But, young lady, we're going to give you an opportunity to say whatever else you want to say, so that then you can join the live chat and hang out for the little bit rest of the show. Thank you for coming on. Thank you for Kate's TTs
Well, thank
What do you have
thank
to
you
say?
so much for having me, and I appreciated it, and I appreciated everyone in the chat was super friendly, and it was a good conversation. It was a good conversation with you, and a good conversation in the chat. It seems like everybody was focused on what we were talking about, and this is a topic that a lot of people apparently are really interested in because it matters so much. To society. You know, the roles that men and women play in relationships and in society and in politics and so forth, which I personally think women don't belong in politics, but that's a different discussion. But the roles that men and women play in all of those places really matter because that's what makes up the world we live in.
Amen to that. Well, thank you so much. And I will talk to you after the show.
Okay.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. All right, folks. That's the great Kate. And if you have any suggestions for Twitter tantrums, let me know. Let us know. We would like to make it as fun and entertaining and interactive as possible. And so the more we do and the more suggestions we crowdsource, the better it will get. So we plan on sticking with it. And thank you all for being here for that. And I guess you all are wondering about where we are with counter currents and the smear article, which clearly people are weighing in. No one looks at that article and is coming back and saying, oh, it's a perfectly legitimate assessment of what you do, what this whole community is about, of white positive sphere. It's a perfectly legitimate and accurate assessment. Nobody's coming back and saying that. People are reaching out to me that aren't in this community as well, are reaching out and saying, have you seen this article? They got the link. Have you seen this? I know you. This is not what you do. This is not what you talk about. And I can tell that this author hates you. I can tell that this author is trying to convince the readers of Countercurrents to ignore you, to form an opinion about you, that you are just sort of a simpleton. You have this sort of a very quirky and odd idea that you have stolen from the past. You've brought nothing original. The author even says repeatedly in that trash, that tabloid tier trash. And have you seen? And then he goes on to say that when your dumb stolen ideas from the past, when your airheaded ideas that you stole from the past, if they were to even work, here's what would happen. The neighborhood of the white sympathetic sphere, all of us, would be destroyed by all of these anti-white white people. So I'm getting all of these messages, and it's of a single mind. No one is saying it makes perfect sense. It's a perfectly reasonable argument that the author is making. It's an accurate or somewhat accurate assessment of who you are and what you do. No one is saying that, because it's not. Everybody is looking at that and they know. So we have to ask why. Why is that posted on Countercurrents when Countercurrents, and Greg Johnson presents himself in a very specific way and the Countercurrents that way? So I decided to ask, because we could speculate. And when I was doing the review, I speculated, or Kate speculated, and we all were. Did Greg know that it went up? Maybe he didn't, we were saying. And what would he do? If he knew it went up, why would he allow it? Was it satire? Was it supposed to be some kind of a joke? So I know Greg, and I pulled up the email, and one of my old emails with him, I opened it to send him a message about this and ask what's going on here. Incidentally, that email, I'll have to look back again to see the exact details, but I vaguely remember he had appeared on the after party. And as you know, Jared George and I, by way of our decision to value those who participate, decided that everyone who came on the after party would receive an even share of the financial gifts that came in on that show. I had sent Greg a gift card for his share per his request. I had sent him a gift card for his share. It was, I think, maybe a year later that I decided, again, I'll have to look at the exact details. It's in that email thread, that I discovered that he had never used the gift card, that he hadn't even like opened it. It was still just sitting there. So what could I have done? I mean, it wasn't like some huge sum of money. I don't know how much it was. Maybe it was $13. Maybe it was $20. I don't know what it was. Splitting 3 ways, right? The super chats from the after party. I could have very easily said, this isn't worth my time. I gave him voided the gift card, and the money would just go back to me, and said, it's not worth my time. I gave him the opportunity for his $13 or $20 or whatever it was, and just be done with it. I'm busy. Instead, because it's my word, because I'm a man of my honor, I reached out to Greg and I said, Greg, I just noticed, I know it's a year later or whatever it was, that you never opened your gift card. You never accepted your gift card. It's in this email. And he wrote back to me and he said, I never saw it. And I'm not going to be able to find it in that email, something of this nature. And could you instead send it to this other place? Could you instead send this money to this other place? And I think that's what I ended up doing. I didn't send a gift card again. So I had to, even though I'm busy, I had to stop what I was doing to honor my word to him, stop what I was doing, cancel the gift card, and then send a new payment to him at a new destination of his choice by another processor. So it was that thread that I opened to ask Greg, and that was just by chance. I just typed Greg Johnson in, a whole list of, I just grabbed one and went to hit reply, and I saw that. And I said to him, I said, Greg, oddly enough, the thread I just opened up is this one where I was being respectful and honoring my word to you. And now I have a question for you about why this article is up on Countercurrents. The author I wrote it, not a protracted email, but a reasonable email. And I said, how can this be? Did you not see this? The only thing the author got right was my name. He's totally misrepresenting me. And I went through in sort of a hyphenated way, but all the information there, the information that I shared with everyone here when I broke the article down. What clearly, now I would say about the author, Robert Wills, that he was just some shoddy, terrible journalist in the white sympathetic sphere. And there's no more to it than that. If there weren't tens of thousands of hours, if I hadn't been broadcasting this message, tens of thousands of hours every single week, multiple times a week, 5 books, public speeches. I don't know where this Robert Wills is, but if he's in the white sympathetic sphere, he's going to know Jason Kuna, no white guilt. He's going to know what we're talking about, what we're advocating for, and who we're speaking to. For example, does he witness me going to, I don't know, all black churches in the most heavily Democrat section of town? Does he witness me going to fanatical anti-white white locations with leaflets and literature? Does he see me in San Francisco trying to convince the radical anti-whites there who have gone through and forced everybody out of the neighborhood, and now they're rejuvenating it for a bunch of anti-whites. Washington State, Seattle. Does he see me doing that? Is there this gigantic repository of history of me traveling to radical anti-white environments to speak to radical anti-whites? Or is there this giant tens of thousands of hours of me being on the forefront, the point of the spear, the vanguard, speaking to those who are white sympathetic, already explicit and implicit? How about being on that very show for nearly 5 years? Is that an anti-white white crowd at PWR? Speaking in the UK at the PA conference, the things I had to say, was that a white anti-white crowd? The other conferences I've gone to, are those conferences that Greg Johnson knows very well about? Are those conferences where anti-white white people congregate? No. It's all the exact opposite. I've run thousands of dollars of advertising on Gab. Thousands. Not a single ad speaking to the sensibilities or attempting to draw the attention of white anti-whites, liberals they would call them. And Gab, a platform that doesn't cater to liberals. Do they see me running big adverts in liberal strongholds? Do they see me putting up billboards in liberal strongholds? Or do they see me putting up billboards in what would be called right-wing strongholds? So if Wills was just a shoddy, short-sighted, inept reporter for Countercurrents and somehow snuck his article on without Greg knowing, which I doubt he would have the ability to do, without it being seen by the chief editor, and none of this existed, he could be forgiven as just inept. But all of this exists, both that which is done and that which is saliently not done for all of these years. So there is only one conclusion. And that conclusion is that it is serial malice aforethought, a desire to poison the opinions, to ruin my reputation with people in the white sympathetic sphere. And then that made it on to Countercurrents, a webzine that is held by many to be this intellectual webzine for the right wing or alt-right or whatever they would call it. So that these people who need to hear my message, who need to hear what we're talking about, will turn me off before they ever hear a word. Because the no white guilt guy is just some kooky idea thief that wants to bring pink-haired, 400-pound elephant in the room wearing pink bow ties into our circles, and I don't want any of that. That's exactly what this is, by Robert Wills. Whoever that person is, his real name, another Anon out there attacking a guy out here with his face, with his name, a guy out here who is presently having all of this stuff happen, the death threatening, the doxing, the etc., the misrepresentation. Robert Wills made himself a part of that. He made himself a player and part of that attack and misrepresentation. It would have been one thing at that point. But then we have to say, how did it make it onto the platform? How is it published? Some editor would have had to look at it. And who is that editor? And then the very final analysis, the chief editor, the man in charge, Greg Johnson, confronted with the information, if he did not see it and approve it already, confronted with the information and the facts, what I shared, much of which I shared with you here, what would he do? Because then that will tell you the agenda of Greg Johnson, of Countercurrents. Or at least it would give you a direction to begin to lay down your thoughts and construct your speculation or your conjecture. So I reached out to Greg and I said, Greg, this is obviously all erroneous. The only thing that's right is my name. I pointed out how there was no debate. It was a conversation. I was being forced off PWR under duress. Mark and I wanted to leave on good terms despite that, and I think we did a fabulous job. So we were both under duress, and yet we comported ourselves with dignity. Especially I should be celebrated, given that not only is it duress, not just pressure of like, we don't want him on the show anymore and we won't give you money anymore if you don't have him on, or whatever they were saying, but all the rest of the pressure that they were exerting. I still comported myself with dignity. But these people who would feign themselves to be double letter S's and Aryans and all of these things, and they'll show you these beautiful statues and talk about our high morals and our deep philosophy, the way we have always treated each other, even in the trenches. The folks who would gladly tell you about the games of soccer that broke out between two opposing sides in World War II because they felt this camaraderie and they were that honorable. Those same people are doing this to me. It could not be more corrupt and ignoble. The exact opposite of what they feign. So I said in my email to Greg, I firmly request that you remove this article and that you personally pen an apology that you publish on Countercurrents for these things that I've been talking about and others. And Greg didn't make me wait long. He wrote back, and in his very short reply, the first sentence was the defining one, where he says, "I didn't think the article was that bad." Close quote. Then essentially told me, not just essentially, told me that it's a debate that we need to have. And of course I said, there are people out, he said, it's a debate we need to have. And there are people out there who, and I'm going to say something about Greg in a moment here, but there are people out there who advance the idea that we should be appealing to white liberals. And this is a debate that should be had. And of course, I wrote back and I said, because it's a debate that should be had doesn't mean that I had a debate. And because there are people out there who represent that position of recruiting white liberals doesn't mean that I represent that position or that I was arguing in favor of that position when having my final conversation with Mark Collett on PWR, where I told folks at least twice that I was not trying to convince anybody of anything, but making clear my thoughts and how I feel. The one thing that Greg did do in his response to me, and I expect and imagine that he will stick to, is that he said he would allow me to pen a rebuttal that he would publish on Countercurrents. And I told him I would take him up on that offer, and I will put together a concise rebuttal of Robert Wills, what clearly his motivation is, and these scurrilous claims that he has made about us to defame me and misrepresent me. And I don't know, some of you may argue, well, he'll let you post that so he can't be sued for libel or something of this nature. But I think probably this is the best way. If he's going to honor his word and allow me to rebut Robert Wills, that this is probably the best way to go. But you can give me your 2 cents in the live chat. Make sure you tag me. The thing I was going to say about Greg is I don't have as intimate conversations with Greg as I had with Mark, where Mark could tell me that he has all this pressure, it's gotten too bad, there's too much heat, etc. And then you could see it on him. I don't know if Greg's under pressure. You know, I said in my response to Greg that he's too intelligent to believe that the article wasn't that bad, and that because there is a debate that should be had about whether or not you recruit white liberals, that is what I was doing. He's just too smart to believe that. So you all can draw your own conclusions. I want to give him a way out. Maybe he's got pressure on him. Maybe he doesn't have time. I don't know. I want to give him a way out. Because this, otherwise, a level-headed person, sagacious person, don't even have to be well-read, but somebody who's been out in the world, has wisdom from the world, understands people, would immediately conclude that from writer through chief editor, it's a deliberate attempt and potentially even just an opening salvo for an ongoing effort to poison the well against me, the Go Free method, the lives we have saved, the lives we have improved, the children that are born as a consequence of it, the changing of the language on a global scale vis-a-vis the story that we talk about our lives in, whether it be our story where we're the heroes or the anti-white narrative where we can only ever be the villains. A sagacious person would conclude that it looks like that's what it is. What might be more proof to that? I write a rebuttal, and then another writer at Countercurrents writes another smear, poisoning the well article about me. And to think that I was on that show for almost 5 years, putting up with the abuse, the defamation, because I love our people. Everybody can look at the numbers of dollars. It isn't that are financially gifted to me. It isn't even a fraction of what Countercurrents gets when they raise money, or so many other groups. So it's obviously not the money. You can't live in Northern Virginia on those financial gifts. Is it the great fame of having 70 people show up to watch me when I stream? Is that why I do it? Is it the great fame and aggrandizement of that? Hardly. This became a passion for me. And maybe in some other world, people will peer in and say that was the only legitimate guy that was out there like that. That was the only honest guy. That was the only naive guy, because he thought everybody else was motivated like him for our people. Started for me as an 11-year-old, questioning what all this was. Seeing what it was doing to myself and my peers. Dedicating my life then, when I was 12 roughly, to freeing Western kind of anti-whiteism, so that we could come to our own defense and put an end to this. I have given thousands of talks just like this about my motivation, and then demonstrated that that has been my motivation all along in episode after episode after episode of life, of conferences, of live streams. There is no way that someone else in the white sympathetic sphere, Greg himself appearing, I think, at least twice on Tap, and maybe twice or three times on PWR with me, that he couldn't just reach out, send an email. My writer thinks that you're targeting white liberals. Do you really want to bring white liberals in? Or his writer being able to reach out, show up in one of our live streams. Robert Wills himself. Hey, you guys, are you all trying to pick among the testimonials of people saying that they had gone down the path of playing the villain in the anti-white narrative? They had considered themselves Nazis or whatever it is. And then now they have found that they actually love Western kind. They actually want to protect us rather than focus on all of these other groups of people and wanting harm to come to them. Amid all of those kinds of testimonials, so many folks, some of our very best, he could have still come in and said, hey, is this a community of white liberals? I got this interpretation because I was drunk while watching Jason's last episode on PWR and on some sort of heavy narcotics. Maybe I just had a surgery and I still had sodium propofol coursing through my veins. And so this really is a community of a bunch of white liberals, right? You're about to put up your Obama signs. And then everybody would have said, no, where'd you get that idea? And they would have been politely said to Robert Wills, please stay. This is what we're all about. Check it out for a couple months. Maybe you'll like it. And then Robert Wills could have gone and gotten it right on his article, if indeed he decided to even pen it. Maybe this will be the one and only thing that he writes, is this attack on me, another attack on me from this nebulous, loudmouth, bumptious, low-class, feral group who want nothing in the world but to focus all of their enmity, all of their calumny on another group of men. And I don't care what group it is. What I want is to put an end to the victimization of Western kind. And I will say to my dying breath that we will only succeed in putting an end to that victimization when no harm has to come to any other group of mankind. You will not ever convince our brothers and sisters in their tens of millions, hundreds of millions, to desire and to sacrifice for the well-being of Western kind, if to get there, we have to victimize entire other groups of mankind. That narrative, that white well-being, it can only be accomplished by victimizing other groups of mankind is the anti-white narrative. That is what I pushed back against when I discovered it at 11, 12, 13 years of age. My people's well-being does not mean that non-white people have to get hurt. No white people are going to stick, no healthy white people are going to want to be a part of that. And no non-white people are going to want to be a part of that. And I'll take this to the further logical conclusion that you all see in your lives. Most white people, and probably all but the most insane non-white people, are going to fight tooth and nail every single effort. To their grave, they will fight every single effort for white well-being that necessitates non-white victimization. So I'm going to pin something pithy, unless you all give me a better idea. And I'm going to send it off. We'll see if it gets published. We'll see that Greg, I expect, like Greg, I've always been good to Greg. There's a lot of story about Greg. A lot more than is on the internet. There's a lot of history. And I know it all. I've heard all the stories. I'm not going to repeat them. I didn't know all the details about all of these different events, where all of these claims about him that are negative. I haven't repeated any of those. I've always been fair with Greg. I've always told people in the white sympathetic sphere, let him do the intellectual work that he does. Until this episode, I thought he did it pretty well. And it inspired people of a certain bent to want to read and participate. It created a certain level of legitimacy. That is how I've always handled him. So this is a deep stabbing in the back. The worst treatment, and I'm not saying that anti-whites couldn't be worse, because we know how truly vicious they can be. But for all the things that the anti-whites have done, the intimidation, the physical attacks I wrote about, the harassment, this all has been at minimum on par in most cases, and even worse in some instances, but is infinitely more upsetting because you never think that the people on your own side, or what you thought were on your side, would cut your throat from behind. So we'll see what ends up happening when it comes to this. I'll take a look at what you all are saying. I'm going to read a few comments here. As well, we have a few, and we're going to get out of here because it's at 2 hours and 38 minutes. Sloths here in the question widget says it is too much validation to write a reply, but resources are limited and system too steeped in anti-whiteism for fair consequences. Mention all the ads you bought, everything you said here on the stream. It is too much validation to write a reply. So you don't think that I should pin a response to Robert Wills for him to post on Countercurrents? Do I understand that correctly? Resources are limited, and the system is too steeped in anti-whiteism. for fair consequences. And then you're saying mention all the ads you bought. So you mean just in a video reply rather than a written one? Let me see what's over here. Nothing's over on Odyssey. Let me see what's over here. And then I'll look at the YouTube live chat. Oh, the great Slots is over here too. For the love of God, Slots is like, he's all over the place, this guy. Like a ninja tonight. $2 financial gift. Thank you, brother. I appreciate it. He says, a reply to the article is too much validation of it. So yes, confirming. And then he says, oh, I see. So what he's saying is he thinks that the reply is not deserved and that it's too much validation, but that it is the only choice. Thank you for your feedback. I appreciate it. And thank you for all of your comments tonight and financial gifts. Let me jump up to the top of the thread here. And then scroll down to see if we have any comments where you have tagged me and I can respond. I will see it. First Last saying the article is a hit piece. And he's First Last saying the article is still up. Yeah, it's not going anywhere. Speedrunner is with us. Great to see you. Gentile Gentleman says, it is honorable that he allows you to respond. I'll give him credit for that. However, he is being dishonest about the premise of the article, and he is being dishonest that they are trying to stir up drama. Is that what you meant? For thing? That they are thing to stir up, or they're trying? He's being dishonest. So you're saying that it's honorable for him to allow a response, but it's dishonest if he's saying that they're not trying to stir up trouble. Well, I mean, I have not known, I'm not an adamant reader, of course, of countercurrents, but I have not known it to really be sort of disputatious and trying to cause rumors and tabloid-like level. And if that's what it's doing now, let me know. It is important for two reasons. If you write an article and they refuse to post it, you know you have outclassed them. If they continue to smear, it's because you are a threat. Continue, gentle gentleman. Thank you for that. I think you're right. I mean, I had thought when I received the email, if Greg is honest, if Greg is actually going to say to me what I know he knows is not true, he's far too smart, that the article's not that bad, and then say that, like, I complained about how it wasn't a debate, and then he responded by, the debate should be had. And then I said, I don't represent this effort to bring white liberals into the white sympathetic sphere. And then he writes back and says, yes, but there are those out there who are doing that. I briefly thought, is this offer to publish, like on their front page, like wherever the articles go, is this something that I'm going to spend a little bit of time putting together and then just get rejected? Like, any excuses. I mean, honestly, if you can say that article really isn't that bad, you can come up with an excuse for why anything I write won't be permitted because of X, Y, or Z. But I concluded the same thing, that gentle gentleman is writing here, that I kind of have to do it to see, is it going to be posted? And if not, a lot of conclusions can be drawn. And then if it's allowed to be posted, but then other writers are recruited to come in after me Because if Greg allows other writers to come in after me to just spew more, or maybe some things that are maybe slightly less defamatory, slightly less poisonous for my reputation, then it is as if he said, no, you don't get to respond. That Will's article is perfectly accurate. Every time I turn around, Jason, you're always in Boston lecturing at the school up there, and you're saying, just bring your pink hair dye and head on over to the white sympathetic sphere. Since that's always happening, this is clearly true. I've always been fair with you, Greg. Man, you know all the stories. You know all the drama. Man. First Last says, oh yeah, let me get my giving in gear. Okay. Thanks, brother. I appreciate it. Pierce Taylor is still with us. First Last saying, even if I did talk to white liberals, it would still be the right thing to do. Now, it'd be perfectly ineffective. You know, one of the things that you've all heard me say over the years, often, is that if you talk to a person and they are radically anti-white, like a liberal, like a white anti-white, you say, thank you, have a nice day. Because that's the best thing they can reveal, is that they're never going to show any interest. They can never be persuaded to becoming white positive. So you say, thank you, have a nice day, and you go on to the person who can hear. I've never said go to anti-white white areas and try to recruit those people. In fact, I've always said you stay away from those areas. You stay away from non-white areas, because just about anything said in a non-white area about white well-being or stopping the victimization of white people is going to be scary for non-white children, because they're going to be seeing the movies, right? And it's something that anti-whites can say, look at these dastardly people. They went into this neighborhood. It wouldn't matter. We could be out there handing out $100 bills, and the anti-whites in the media would still make it look like we were there with horns on and Hugo Boss. So regularly, I'm telling you, just move right on by those people. The exact opposite of the allegation, this baseless accusation by another Anon. Brad C., great to see you, good sir, says ball's in Greg's court regarding the rebuttal. That it is. All right. JK160 is with us. Hello and welcome, good sir. Archangel says, you know things about him. I assume you're talking about Greg Johnson, question mark. So the answer is yes. Sounds like a shot across Greg's bow, my friend. But it looks as though his cannons are already pointed at you at your mainsail. Time to swash. Well, it is to point out that I have always been good to him relative to all of that history. That demonstrates my integrity, my honor, my valuing of what he does for our people. And so I have to say that, even though it could be interpreted as you did, I have to say that to illustrate how dastardly it is to stab me in the back. I mean, if I hadn't known Greg from Adam, He shows up one day like, I don't know, one of these hate watch or something like this, and then does this. Well, of course. Or if it was just somebody in the sphere who never had any drama around him, never was accused of all kinds of things, then I wouldn't have been in a position to say, to overlook, to say, is it possible that we can move forward? To say, shouldn't you just let him move out here and not press charges and all of this sort of stuff? That's me going out, same way I did for Bob Whitaker. And then you see, I think it's mostly these anti-white cryptos showing up who try to say, you've done nothing, you've done no work. Because they want to try to get me riled up against Bob's memory and the people who still esteem him. And I'm not going to do it. I came to his defense. I said, let him and his people do their thing. It's a good thing, because I wanted people saying anti-white. So I said, it's a good thing. I hope he takes up anti-whiteism. I hope he takes up anti-white narrative. It's a good thing. So anyhow, and that's not to say, so just to make that clear, I wasn't saying that if Greg doesn't fix this, I'm going to start revealing all of these stories about Greg. I'm not saying that. Elaine Sabatino says, yes, go for it. Jason, rebut the butthead. Yeah, who knows who this Wills guy is? Marlene says, I do think that CC is trying to trigger No White Guilt into this so-called unnecessary debate. So you think it's a bit of a trap. You think the plan ahead of time was to get me to write a rebuttal that would be posted, that then they can bring a bunch more of, or one more, some other author in. JK160 says, the fact that they are all attacking you at the same time tells me they were all just waiting to attack in numbers because they are too cowardly to do it by themselves. Whoa, that's got a lot of weight to it. You know, it's like I said, people got really jealous of that quarterback, that white quarterback. Gosh, what was his name? I almost just had it. Played for New England when he won all those Super Bowls, and then he went down and won another Super Bowl. What was his name? Let's see if anybody can come up with his name. But he was so good. Brady. Thank you, JK160. Tom Brady. Azimuth Clark. Great to see you, brother. O.J. Simpson. First last. You're funny, man. Terry Bradshaw. No. So with Tom Brady, it's contemporary, so you all will remember. This guy was invincible. He just kept making it happen. He just kept winning. And because he had a method that was very successful, that engendered a great deal of jealousy of him. Beautiful wife, handsome family, millions and millions of dollars pouring in, other teams doing everything they can to shut this guy down, and he just keeps winning again and again and again. And it engendered all this jealousy, so that at any moment, any negative claim about Tom Brady, and you had this sea of people came forward to say, yes, must be true. Yet it's absolutely true. And I'll tell you something else. And you can immediately tell that that's born out of sheer jealousy. It has nothing to do with the claim or the accusation or whatever it might be. Nothing to do whatsoever. The team, there's an accusation about the team and whether or not it was true that they were, I guess, were they watching or scouting in some way the opposing team's offenses. So it was like the defense or something from New England. And even though Brady had nothing to do with that, and I don't believe it could have benefited him at all, because he plays on offense. So it's his team's defense, I guess, or whatever it was. They still said, oh, it's Brady. Brady's in on that. People just wanted to believe it because of the success. Could you imagine in the white sympathetic sphere where it's real lives and people's lives, and we've seeded society with our lexicon, and they're doing the same thing, not a game. I don't have millions of dollars to live on. I don't get to work for Hertz and get paid $30,000 every time my commercial shows up or whatever it is. And these people are still like, burn him down because he and that community has had success. There's no truth in anything, you all know, you can see, no truth in anything any of these people are saying. There's no legitimacy to the criticisms. The article is from start to finish totally fraudulent. Not a single, nobody is taking our actual positions and deconstructing and saying, here's why they are wrong, here's why they won't work. Nobody's doing that. You have the name and slay them folks who all they can say now is they've all developed this extreme cope. Since they couldn't come up with any arguments, all they do now is it's like a one-liner. He strawmans. And they think I can just dismiss with that. I won't have to talk about the arguments that he makes. I won't have to formulate arguments and respond. I won't have to just ignore him and leave that community alone. Because as you know, we're not going into their live chats. This is not the way that white men behave. This is not the way that men of the West behave. This is the way of thieves. This is the way of cutthroats. This is the way of scoundrels. Great point, JK160. And we have Porden Jeterson. Okay. That's a spoonerism, by the way, folks, if you do that by accident rather than actually make it your name or intend it. Rather than a rebuttal, simply clarifying what you're about would be good. Oh, now this might be something interesting. In my opinion, best to give them benefit of doubt before writing. Also, you can also mention concerns about future divisions in movement. Well, that's some good advice. I think I'm going to have to keep that advice as well. You're absolutely right. And it had to come, of course, from Porden Jeterson. Who else? Well done. Thank you for that. That's a great point. Now, I think from, an objective assessment, they are, at least that writer, I don't know what's going on with Greg. It's somebody I know. It's somebody that I've given the benefit of the doubt. It's somebody that I've protected. In that I defended, I argued against actions against him. So I don't know what's going on there. But clearly, objectively speaking, the author had malicious motives. However, writing my response as though I'm, as in the article, I'm giving benefit of the doubt by not going there. Maybe that's the best tact. Archangel says, I understand exactly where you're coming from. I cannot believe you dealt with their sphere for so long. I have no patience for them. And he says that I was agreeing with you. Thank you for that, Archangel. O.J. Simpson. That's funny. Reptile says here, when a wolf pack attacks the alpha, he stops leading, and they eventually starve. Jealousy always costs the greatest asset and results in group failure. Very well put. Absolutely. Thank you for that. And I think, Reptile, the big driver of that jealousy, of course, was that I was making arguments they couldn't overcome, and that we as a community are culling the very best in the white sympathetic sphere, explicit sphere. And they're just watching where the thinkers, the artists, the producers are leaving here to go to Love, Hope, and Redemption and the success that they're having there. And of course, why wouldn't they? So rather than celebrate that, and I didn't have anybody reach out to me to tell me that there had been a single article at Countercurrents celebrating our successes. So rather than celebrate that, you burn it down. Sloth says, take that advice from Pot. P-O-T. Also consider writing in the article that responses to you may occur, or you only care to state what you're about and not debate the falsely attributed positions. Yeah. Very well written. Another great point. All right. Reptile says, attacking our own is just another means of gatekeeping. Yeah, can you believe the gatekeeping now is to prevent people from coming to white well-being, love, hope, and redemption, and what we work on here. Focus on us and putting an end to our victimization, putting ourselves in our own story. Gatekeeping to prevent the white population who come into the white sympathetic sphere from making their way to this. They complain about gatekeepers. They complain about having, and it's all hypocrisy, complain about gatekeepers, complain about freedom of speech and them not getting it. Porden. That's what I figured you meant. Thank you, Sloths. All right, let me take a look, and you all can keep giving your thoughts. I'm going to take a look at just a couple of these comments, and it looks like I haven't missed anybody anywhere. So we'll do this before, what time is it? Uh-oh. After midnight, we gonna let it all hang out. Midnight on the East Coast, ladies and gentlemen. Real Playlist 1 writes here, note how they do not, capital N-O-T, start joking around with her. Okay, she's talking about Samantha Fox, I think, and the GFC of Virginia action that was so successful. Note how they do not start joking around with her inappropriate team-up comment to deflect the confrontation. So when Samantha Fox, the Republican running for mayor, said to Caleb and myself that, oh, you're trying to team up, we didn't start joking around about that. And essentially allow her to derail the conversation. It's no laughing matter. And she tries twice to play the card, and Jason stays professional. Very effective, exclamation point. Jason, your body language, composure, lack of gestures, keeping your head still, all things done perfectly as not to draw a crowd. Allow them to label you a disruption or toxic male. She had nothing to work with. Masterful influencer at work. For there is no debate that anti-white policies are morally wrong. That's right. There is no debate about that. They are all morally wrong. And thank you very much, Real Playlist One, for those observations and sharing those with the community. Is Real Playlist One with us tonight? If not, then and you see this, you can follow up in the thread if you have anything you want to add. Jubilation Media says here, and I think it looks like he's talking about my review of Kanye on Piers Morgan. He says, I think the reason Kanye is able to give some decent responses is because he hasn't been trained by conservatives who always employ a losing strategy. Kanye was explaining how he was financially exploited and treated like trash. Piers responds by asking how Kanye could be so mean and cruel to have no regard to the suffering he caused by naming the people victimizing him. It's an intentionally dumbfounding question to elicit a confused and incoherent response. Whites need to learn from this. We are demanded to apologize and grovel for pointing out our victimization. Respond to emotion with emotion. Take it personally. Pierce was attempting to silence the victim and paint him as the oppressor. This is all very telling. It's a rare thing to see a black man ridiculed and ruined for speaking out about his oppression. I don't know what they expect us to conclude from this. He goes on, I don't think the white sympathetic sphere rejects our verbiage out of stupidity, spite, or slowness to learn. Within a week, 100% of antnats, and then he gives a long list of names, immediately adopt the verbiage and narrative that slaughtering white Ukrainians will lead to the destruction of the Judeo-American Empire so that its vassal states can be freed. They're very quick to adopt and adapt to new talking points so long as the orders are coming from the right person, agents, or organizations. And then here's a point he's talking about that Greg Johnson made. That's a good point. Greg Johnson pointed out, if the only hope for their country is for America to be destroyed, why are they asking for donations? Why do you need money to wait for some third world savior to invade and destroy Western hegemony? Of course, these lunatics are not going to adopt your verbiage. They are subversive saboteurs. They don't want white well-being. They want to destroy our people and civilization. And since they all adopted the same talking points at the same time, it's likely that they're being funded or controlled by the same entity. Actually, he has a little bit more here, another paragraph. You also have to wonder, why are they opposed to what happened? You also have to wonder, why are they opposed to what happened in Rotherham or 2015 Germany? Didn't these horrific attacks serve to weaken Western hegemony? Currently, the same brutality is being enacted on white Ukrainian children, often by third world mercenaries for Putin, and the Ant-Nats cheer it on. If the victimization of our people is inconsequential to you because you think their ruined lives will somehow place you in power one day, you're just as anti-white as the people you claim to oppose. You know, one of the things I'm brilliant, Porridge. One of the things that I'm happiest of surviving with these, continuing to push despite all the slanders and the death threats and doxing and misrepresentation to poison the well, even from the intellectual webzines, is that we here are the first time a place where reasonable voices, where intelligent people can speak without being shouted down by the lowest IQ'd in the room. Very bright people come here to share intelligible, very intelligent thoughts about the well-being of our people, how to go from where we are today to where we need to be. Tactics, concepts, we continue to make the method stronger along the way. Pants, who is here tonight, writes, "Thank you for your work, brother. I know it can be disheartening. Everyone gets blackpilled from time to time. I will remind you, however, that I was able to recently convince 2 co-workers to use anti-white instead of leftist when protesting against the anti-white hiring practices." Brilliant. Brilliantly done. I never would have been able to do that openly had I still been an ant-nat. You make a difference, man. God bless you, brother. And Pants is a perfect example of why so many of those folks are misrepresenting and doing everything they can to destroy the good work that we've done. Because the thinkers, the achievers, the agents of change are finally waking up to, we're not making any change here. I'm just ruining my life going around saying the things that they want me to say. I want to make a difference. I want to be a hero in our story rather than a slug in theirs. That's why they're so pissed off. And we have, one from First Last. One more to read, and it is from First Last himself. He writes here, "Jason, your intelligence, poise, and confidence are an inspiration. Please keep fighting the good fight." God bless you, man. First Last, thank you, brother. That's very kind of you to say. I really appreciate it. All right, we'll take one more look at what you all are saying. I'll see if there are any financial gifts that I missed, and then we're going to roll out for tonight. And then I don't imagine we'll be back before Sunday, but anything crazy could happen, you know, and we might come back. But for now, let me see, make sure I didn't miss anybody. I'll take a look at the all right, got that. Machiavelli Sucks is here. Great to see you. Linda is here. Oh, Porter Jeterson says the elevator pitch. I like that. The elevator pitch for NWG. Promote white well-being without ruining your life. That could be on like a business card. Promote white hand out to everybody in the explicit white sympathetic sphere. How'd you like to? So you all get to see, I've told you, forever in the white sympathetic sphere, before the internet was strong enough to carry all of this, what I had to deal with. Can you imagine? This is what I've been putting up with. Now, on this scale, was not possible without the internet. So it's a much more widespread. I mean, there are people who are trying to silence me from a couple continents. So it's bigger in that sense. But this is the same thing. You know, I would show up. I would be at a meeting or a conference. I would, we're all having conversation. And I would share these ideas and make a case. And my audience, one or more, some would get excited. Some would be able to see, and they would say, yeah, I see. Maybe there'd be somebody there even already using some of the methods. I had success with that. And then the organizers and the people financing the they would suddenly be like, no, we're going to nip that right in the bud. We don't want the only way that, well, maybe not the only, well, sharing the Go Free method caused those who were making a living for themselves and getting aggrandized and maybe even, not maybe even, but also sexually satisfied by way of their participation, really threatened them. I mean, it was just obvious. And we're, by the way, this is another, we're not asking, you get focused on something. I'll tell you something funny I did one time. I've mentioned it a couple times before, I think, but maybe some of you have never heard. Let me make sure I haven't gone to, okay. Maybe some of you have never heard the story, but when you become, when you have target fixation, your brain just turns off everything else you need to be looking at. So you have to step back, laterally think, take a look at the picture, the whole picture again, and do that several times. Target fixation has a way of doing it. The brain wants to do that. When it senses a threat or something, it wants to turn everything else off and just focus on that. And that can be dangerous. And I'll tell you it's funny in a second. But we're talking about what was allowed on countercurrents. But we did talk about what has not been said, all of our successes. But how was something not said about what should be uniformly condemned in every corner of the white sympathetic sphere? And that is the misrepresenting, death threatening, and doxing of participants. How did, for example, much as I like Mark, how was Mark only able to muster up, what, you're doxxed? Well, people should try not to do that. Maybe only the leader of Antifa. And then he moved on. How is it that Greg, when he wrote back to me, didn't express sympathy about, my God, I haven't heard about that yet. I didn't watch that show. I can't believe that's happening to you. That is sickening. Why didn't he say that? Why didn't he say that? Why didn't he say, you know what, we're going to do a story on you being targeted by these people and the doxing and all of that. So we're going to do a story on it because that is absolutely just, it should never be done. That silence is deafening. So when you back up and you begin to look at things a little bit more broadly, sometimes the truth sort of comes up out of it, sort of like in the morning, the sun comes up. The sun comes up and it's just cresting the horizon, rolling over the hills in the morning. And you see that like that steam coming up as that moisture, that dew begins to evaporate. And you see things clearer and clearer. And it eventually burns it all away. It's kind of like the same thing. So, Speedrunner, great to see you. Burn Man, Board Troll, great to see you all. I don't think I missed anybody. Porden Jeterson, a follow-up thought was, one reason for giving them the benefit of the doubt before writing is that if they choose to be petty after that, you'll come out looking better. Yes, yes, great point. Well written. A reason to mention concerns about the future is that if they choose to be petty after that, it will be clear to everyone who is causing the division. Yes, indeed. Very well written. Again, good sir, you're 100% right. Yeah, and I also have to make it quite, I think, concise. Because so many people have already been poisoned against me that if they can't finish up what I have to say in a breath, practically, they're just going to say, oh, no, I already know what I need to know about him. Fernol, the great Fernol is here, and he says they're stuck in the oversimplified left versus right paradigm. You're absolutely right. Thank you again, Mr. Jeterson. Another great recommendation. Reptile says, Mark has expelled supporters for shameful behavior. Why wasn't the doxer named and shamed? Oh boy, great point. Talk about stepping back from like the totality of it and being able to see things. Why wasn't the doxer named and shamed? Wow. Wow, Reptile. You know what? He actually read a question from the doxer. I didn't acknowledge it during the show. But you're absolutely right. And Franklin is essentially answering the question because Mark knows that they would swarm him as well. Roger is here. Anglo-Saxon is here. Great to see you all. I don't think I've missed anybody there. All right, that's still working. And let me check over here. So I will be, it's almost certainly just will be Sunday, we'll be back. And for the Go Free gathering, it'll be epic as it always is. And I hope you let everybody know and that we're going to be having the Going Free gathering as usual, 5 p.m. And although some folks are sick around me, so I'm trying not to get sick, doing my best. Westy is bestie, financially gifted over on Odyssey, 1 library token. And he says, I empathize with wanting to give the benefit of the doubt, especially to those who are, in theory, quote, on your side. But the moment I saw the article and that certain thumbnail saying it indeed was a debate, I knew where it was going. And it became obvious it was solely to misrepresent you. You're right. You're right. There's no other explanation. There's no explanation that isn't ugly. That's exactly what it was. That's exactly what Robert Wills wanted to do, is misrepresent me to prevent people from investigating the Go Free method and to convince the totality of the reader's account occurrence and to filter its way out into the rest of the white sympathetic sphere, that if you follow my method, the white sympathetic sphere is going to end up being a bunch of pink-haired, anti-white white people, liberals. And then our defeat will be secured, whatever. Having said that, Jeterson's points about the way that rebuttal is phrased are strong. Those are good, strong points about how to handle that. It might also make it, I don't know. It might also make it harder for them to try to come back with slander. But I mean, you can't get more deceptive and malicious than they've been. You just simply can't. Every single claim has been a lie. Every single argument has been erroneous. It would be like telling somebody, hey, we're not going to tell you who you're going to write about, but we want you in the piece that you're going to write to discourage anyone from ever heeding what that guy does or says and to make them hate him. Have at it. And then just publish it. The whole thing from start to finish was a fabrication, propaganda meant specifically for that point. There's no defense of it. No defense was made. So maybe I'll get lucky one of these days and I will, at a conference in the future, I will meet Robert Wills. I'm sure that'll be a good conversation. Until then, roll out.